Time to begin our regular city council meeting. Let me remind you, this is a formal city council meeting. You need to remain quiet in the audience while we are conducting business. If you have something that you want to say, you'll need to do that either during the public comments or the public hearings. Otherwise, you will not be able to speak. Okay, so public comments or public hearings. And with that, we're going to begin this meeting. Please stand for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. All right, City Secretary, we have a quorum this evening. Councilmember Stone is not in attendance due to work-related matters. City Secretary, proof of notice of meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Notice of this meeting was posted by 2 p.m. on May 2nd.
Okay, so we're moving into public comments. If you have something to say on any of the agenda items, this is one of the 2 times that you can speak. You will have 3 minutes. Council cannot respond to you. And you need to come up to the podium, state your name and ward. City Secretary, do we have any public comments this evening?
We do. First up, we have Brent Freeland, Ward 5. He will be discussing an action item.
Okay, come on up, Brent. Be sure to state your name and ward for the record.
Over here.
Yes.
Hi, Brent Freeland. I live on Logan Drive out in Country Club Estates. And thank you for allowing me to speak. A couple quick things I wanted to address. First of all, if you haven't been to Country Club Estates, there's no country club, but they're not estates, but that's what it's called. A couple quick items to address. And one is real quick about the dumpsters and to get into the roads. And I know Rick said we don't want to move them down. There were like 9 dumpsters. They said, I don't want to move them down to Highway 90, which is great. But you did say you wanted to move them down to the entrance of the neighborhood. My only question is, when you crest the hill coming into Alpine, do we really want to see, whether you live in Country Club Estates, forget Country Club Estates, you want to see 10 dumpsters lined up on the side of the road where it's going to be a community trash bin? There's going to be tires there. Anybody coming in out of town is going to use that dumpster. We all know that's going to happen. I just hope it doesn't happen. You know, I was on the Main Street board 30 years ago. I was on the first leadership Big Ben. You know, but the only reason I mentioned that is because I love Alpine. We all love Alpine. That's why we're here. And so I just don't want that to happen. I don't want to put dumpsters down there and then spray paint and welcome to Alpine in the dumpsters. You know, that can't happen. The other thing is, very quickly, about the roads. First of all, is there any other wards that have told your people, we don't want trucks going down your roads? Are we the only one, are we the only road in the whole city that doesn't want that? Because I'm not sure if that's right. By the way, I talked to Jake Garrett this morning because I wanted to make sure that I get my figures straight. I said, do we pay? I mean, depending on where you live in Alpine, could you have the same square footage house and pay more, contribute more to the tax base than someone with the exact same square footage? And he goes, yeah. So I called my son, who's a broker in town, for Johnny Carpenter. And I said, is that true, Atticus? And he goes, yeah, but it depends on a lot of things. The condition of the house, you know, how old the house is, what the grounds of the house is, doesn't matter. But my point is that Country Club Estates, we contribute a big percentage of the tax base compared to the square footage. And yet we have the worst road in Alpine. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And lastly, I'll say this. Years ago, in Rick's defense, we met at the Civic Center. What was that, 7 or 8 years ago? And Rick said, we're going to get new equipment. We're going to, in a couple of years, we're going to fix those roads. In Rick's defense, it never happened. But I think I talked to Judy Stokes and I talked to Jerry Johnson, who were city councilmen there. And they said, we voted for that. We wanted it, but the city voted it down. So here's what I don't want to happen. We got an email from Rick last night, which is very nice. And I'll end with this. It says, one of the front row end loaders we're going to replace in 30 days in the city. Hey, here's what it has been approved at the last council meeting. Second is the zipper. which is scheduled for approval on May 6th. That's today. Listen to this, delivery would be in June, and the
Okay, Mr.
first
Freeman.
use would be in Alpine Country Club Estates in July. I just want to know if everyone's on board with that,
Thank you.
okay? We're waiting, that's July.
City Secretary, do we have any other comments?
Yes, next up, we have Stephen Mills, Ward 5, discussing action item D.
Okay, state your name and ward into the microphone for the record. Remember, council cannot respond to you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, Steve Mills, Ward 5, 1012 Logan Drive. Question, he went really fast, covered most everything there. We all know that the road was not built to code when it was built, okay? So anything going up and down that road is gonna destroy it. So I'll just cut to one of the things. I think there's a little bit of a liability issue with emergency services going back and forth on that road. They will not respond as fast as they can somewhere else. That's fact. We have a retired population up there, majority. They call for EMS, EMS goes out there. EMS can't push drugs going down that road. They have to wait till they get to 90. Anytime somebody says, was it good to delay medical services to somebody? The answer is always no. That then comes back to who's responsible for the roads. Back here. Now, you guys got a bad deal to start with. The road wasn't put together right to start with. So that's kind of a bad idea. But if you fix it in stages, whatever you can afford now, fix it the right way. Then hit the next stage, fix it the right way until you get it done. If you do it right, then you shouldn't have any problems. When I retired out of Harris County last December, we did a lot of studies whenever developers would turn roads over to us. What heavy equipment could go down and what they would do. Before they got turned over, the city engineer and the county engineer would go take core samples of there, make sure it's fit to go over. I would suggest that we just do it a section at a time and just get it done right. Because if you do that, you won't have any problems with one truck going down the road once a week. That's it. So I got.
Thank you. City Secretary?
Next up, we do have Philip Carey, Ward 5, discussing this information and discussion item A and action item D.
Okay, Mr. Carey, come on up, state your name and ward in the microphone. Remember, council can't respond and you have 3 minutes.
Philip Carey, Ward 5 on Mingo Drive. We've all sit through the meetings that Alpine Country Club doesn't produce enough tax revenue to quantify all of the road repairs that are being done. But I think it's important to realize that due to lack of maintenance, none by the current council, but by past councils, it's just let it decay and decay and decay. That's why the road is in the shape it is now. And Country Club is, unless the city wants to start writing checks for car repair, which they're not gonna do, it needs to be fixed quick. You know, we might not be able to do all of it, but there is a huge part of that road that might as well just, I mean, it would be, you could run through the brush and it would be smoother than going down a paved road. So I appreciate your attention to fixing the road. It's exciting that the new equipment's gonna get here, not just for Country Club, but for all the roads. Just, we'd like some road repair because it's getting past the point of no return. Thank you.
City Secretary?
Next up, we have Sandra Whiting, commenting on information and discussion item A and action item B.
Come on up, Ms. Whiting, state your name and ward into the microphone. You have 3 minutes. Council cannot respond.
Sandra Whiting, 2000 Long Branch, Ward 5. My perspective is going to be a little bit different from theirs, although I agree with everything they have stated. My husband and I have lived here going on a little bit over 22 years. We're the longevity out there. We've seen people come and go. And during that time, the garbage trucks, the school buses, the heavy equipment to build new houses, like there are 5 new on Long Branch right now. All of those things have been happening over the years. And yes, you guys probably weren't even around 22 years ago when all of this started. I think that original road is probably between 25 and 30 years old. And the biggest issue with it is maintenance. When Glenn Ramsdale lived in Country Club Estates and we were under the homeowners agreement, Glenn was our spokesperson. And I promise you, he wore the city out about our roads and our mowing the sides of the roads for every time he was here. The homeowners association no longer exists. We don't have a particular spokesperson, but I'm just letting you see the history of our neighborhood. The upkeep has always been an issue. Canova is right now beginning to show some signs of, you're gonna need to give me attention. It may be 6 months down the road, it may be a little bit longer, but nothing is permanent. So I think with you guys and your attention to the detail currently, things can turn around. There are 2 sections of that Country Club Estates that are in very good shape, done by Jarrett Dirtwork. Starting at that corner and going to the top of the hill and to the first turn off is a nightmare. It is dangerous for people on foot. It's dangerous for people in cars. We have vehicles that have to have repair. I don't know what the quickest thing to do is. The quickest and wisest and most economical long-term solution. Since the machine is not in your possession at this time, I don't think we can look forward to seeing that road change for a couple of months. So what to do in the meantime? Mill that road, my suggestion. Maybe we can deal with that. And then when that zipper gets in, it can properly be done correctly. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. City Secretary?
Last up, we have Steve Lindsay, Ward 5, discussing action item D.
Come on up, Mr. Lindsay.
Okay,
Same thing, name, ward.
Steve Lindsay, Ward 5. I've been walking that road, for 5 years since I've been here. And, Mr. Stevens was out there today and, it's really dangerous. And I've emailed, not when Mr. Stevens was our, ward, and the last manager, I never got a response. It's, now we got teenagers driving and, you know how they drive. And, you know, you kind of between a rock and a hard place, you know. The holes are really big. I'm glad y'all getting the zipper, that'll work. But as far as those dumpsters, I don't think I know heavy trucks are in the highways. It's very evident when you're going on Interstate 10. But I don't think once a week, those drivers, they drive slow. They do not grind their wheels like, most people do go around corners. I don't see that as a problem. Moving the dumpsters, it may sound silly, but you know, there's certain things for longevity. One of them to have a good social relationship. And believe it or not, in our little area, there's 6 houses and it is a social area. So, you know, we all try to eat good, but we like social contact. So, and we're getting older. That'll take one way, a little bit of our social activity away. Sounds stupid, it's not. I mean, that sounds, but moving them down there, someone else, I agree with you, put them down there. The deer hunter's gonna come. I already see deer carcasses on the side of the road and everything else. It's easier to do that than take it home to their wives and have the stinky deer carcass. And we're gonna have deer carcasses down there. We've had dumping issues that, a few of us has picked up tires and taken them in and other things, so we take care of that street. You notice it's pretty clean neighborhood, and when the dumpsters are close to you, if it starts stinking, it's real easy to take Clorox water and pour it in there and, you know, get the stink away. You got them down there, when the wind blows and all the garbage blows away, who's gonna pick it up? Not gonna be me anymore. The dumpsters are good where they're at. It's a social thing for me too. And thank y'all. I'm glad y'all gonna fix the roads. I will say about the roads that where it's real bad at Canova and out at Country Club Estates, that water rushes off that hill. That water's doing that damage. As you go down and the road goes down, someone at some time has cut a berm that directs that water away from it. So we got a half a mile of road that's real good shape. It's because the water's not hitting it. I don't think it has nothing to do with them trucks. Them truck drivers, good drivers.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Your time
Thank
up.
you.
Thank you. All right, City Secretary, that was the final comment. All right, so we're moving on to public hearings. If you have something to say on one of these items, this is the time to do it. You cannot do it during the consent agenda or anytime else unless a council member calls you forward. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Once again, be sure to state your name and ward, and council cannot respond to you. Public hearing A, City Secretary, beginning at 5:46 PM. To obtain citizen views and comments regarding the second and final reading of ordinance 2025-05-01 and ordinance amending chapter 74 Parks and Recreation. Article 2 Municipal Swimming Pool to Alpine Code of Ordinances, amending rules and regulations for the city pool. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, public hearing B, to obtain citizen views and comments regarding the second and final reading of ordinance 2025-05-02 and ordinance authorizing the vacation, abandonment, and sale of 0.046 acres out of South Fifth Street right-of-way platted as part of Ferguson Second Edition to the city of Alpine, envelope 96, plat records of Brewster County, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute a deed without warranty to the applicant, Horticultural Consulting LLC, directing that the funds from the sale of the city's interest be deposited in the general fund for the purpose of street improvements, providing for the terms and conditions of such thereof, providing for a severability clause, providing for an effective date. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Seeing none, public hearing C, to obtain citizen views and comments regarding special use permit 2025-05-01. A special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 307 East June Street. The applicants are April McAllen. The property owner of record is Carla Tamanka. The parcel ID of the subject property is 10199. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none. That closes public hearings. City Secretary at 5:48.
Was you supposed to speak on it?
Hello. Hi, this is April McAnally. I'm sorry.
Hi, April.
Hi, I just wanted to speak real quick on the STR
Okay, go ahead.
307. From my understanding, it was permitted in 2020 and as a single family residence, and is now we're trying to get the STR permit. I manage about 30 homes in Alpine. I have a good relationship with the city. And so I just want to make the council aware that I'll make sure that this is taken care of. And I don't feel it's right to restrict the use of this property after it was already permitted in the past.
Okay, thank you, April.
Sure.
All right, so moving on to public presentations and recognitions. There are none. Proclamations, we have 4 this evening, and for those that are here in attendance for each of these, come on up when you're called, but we'll take a photo at the end. We'll call a brief recess and we'll go outside and take an employee photo. Okay, city manager, come on up. Okay, we can have the employees for National Public Service Appreciation Week. Come on up.
Actually, we're just gonna have them stand, because literally all of them.
Oh, okay.
And so after we're done, we'll actually go out for the big group picture, guys, but if y'all can kind of just stand so everyone
Yes,
who
please
is
stand.
not an employee can see.
Please stand.
Come on, take pride. So, whereas Americans are served every single day by public servants at the federal, state, county, and city levels, these unsung heroes do the work that keeps our nation working. And whereas public employees take not only jobs, but oaths, and whereas many public servants, including military personnel, police officers, firefighters, Border Patrol officers, embassy employees, healthcare professionals, and others risk their lives each day in service to the people of the United States and around the world. And whereas public servants include teachers, doctors, scientists, train conductors, astronauts, nurses, safety inspectors, code enforcement personnel, utility workers, street crews, laborers, computer technicians, social workers, finance personnel, administration, and countless other occupations. Day in and day out, they provide the diverse services demanded by the American people of their government with efficiency and integrity. And whereas, without these public servants at every level, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and elected officials.
Now therefore be it proclaimed that the week of May 4th to 10th, 2025 be designated as National Public Service Recognition Week in Alpine, Texas. And further encourage all citizens to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels, federal, state, county, and city. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand the 6th day of May in the year 2025. Thank you, guys. In a moment, we will take our picture. Okay, next up is a proclamation for National Municipal Courts Clerk Week. Whereas the office of the professional. Yeah. Hey. Trying to hide. All right, whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local governments, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between citizens, the local governing bodies and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of our municipal clerk, Jeffrey Calderon, and clerks Vianney Olivas and Alexandria Tackett. Now therefore, I, Catherine Eves, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, on behalf of the community, do hereby recognize May 4th to May 10th, 2025 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week in Alpine, Texas, and encourage all citizens to join me in this worthy observance. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand the 6th day of May in the year 2025. Okay, now we have a proclamation for National Public Works Week. Would you like too many?
So this is gonna be our Public Works Department, your Parks Department, and your Water Department. So there are several of you here tonight, so if you could just stand so that everyone can recognize these departments.
Yes.
You've got some that are in the back, and I think there's some sitting outside.
Yes.
Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Alpine. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the public works professional, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Alpine to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas this year, 2025 marks the 65th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association.
Now therefore, I, Catherine Eves, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, on behalf of the community, do hereby recognize May 18th to 24th, 2025 as National Public Works Week in Alpine, Texas, and urge all citizens to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand the 6th day of May in the year 2025. Thank you. Thank you, God.
If we could get the law enforcement officers to please come forward. You kind of stick out, so we know who you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Some of you can come over on this side. Let's go ahead. Split it up, make it even.
Okay, so whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as the National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls is National Police Week, established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. And whereas the members of the Alpine Police Department play an essential role in promoting safety, security, and general well-being of all people while safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens and visitors of the city of Alpine. And whereas it is of the utmost importance for all citizens to recognize and understand the challenges, duties, and efforts of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize, understand, and perform their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, by protecting the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression, and the vulnerable against harm. And whereas the Alpine Police Department has grown to be a progressive, professional, and responsible law enforcement agency which unceasingly provides a vital public service at all times and in all conditions. Now therefore, I, Catherine Eves, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, on behalf of the community, do hereby recognize May 11th to 17th, 2025 as National Police Week, and call upon all citizens of the City of Alpine to join in commemorating police officers past and present who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand the 6th day of May in the year 2025. Thank you so much.
So we are gonna take a short break. And if all the employees can head outside to that rock area, we're gonna do the big group picture.
Okay, we're gonna have a 5-minute break. Starting now. Starting now.
Council included.
Uh-oh.
Council included.
Gotta go join.
You can hide, but come on.
I'm convinced that's what you're out there to go. I mean, it's. I went before this. I wanted, I wanted to. I asked. So, that's my sense. Now, all the videos and everything else, just because you're building the the base and the.
You want me to go brush our hair?
Go back and look.
Okay, council, let's go.
That's why.
All right, everybody. All right, city secretary, 6:05 PM, we are back in session. All right, so community interest items. 1 minute for each person, city secretary. Mayor announcements first. I want to congratulate our new council members who will be sworn in next week at a special city council meeting on Tuesday, May 13th. If you guys would please stand, we have Councilmember Portillo and Councilmember Ruckus coming into office. For the willingness to serve. Right? And then also, keep your ears out for information about drought conditions here in Brewster County. There may be some important announcements coming up within the next week. All right, city manager, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mayor. Please be on the lookout. We have started a customer survey. It was initiated at the beginning of this month to start gathering data for our combining of utility accounts. So there is a survey going out. It will be a big PSA in the next couple of days regarding your gas and your water utilities, getting that information combined so that we can move forward with our new software. Currently, we're gonna have it available online and here at City Hall. It did go out through the electronic bills for those who have those. Also, in continuation for the National Public Service Appreciation Week, we will have city offices closed on Friday, May 9th from noon to 5 PM in recognition of our employees with a friendly cooking competition that is held annually here at City Hall. I'm excited. Smash burgers.
1 minute, Councilmember Stevens.
Yeah, I think
1 minute, Councilmember Escobedo.
Oh, I just wanted to recognize also the National Week for Nurses and also for the correctional officers.
Okay, thank you. 1 minute, Councilmember Nance.
The only thing I was gonna mention is I wish some of the individuals would have stayed out there so I could have given them all the appreciation, because when we're on this side, this is my last meeting. We just really don't get to see the city workers too much, and thank them for everything they do on this side of the die, so.
Great, thank you.
Don't make us cry.
I know. Councilmember Martinez, 1 minute.
Yes, I want to congratulate the new council members. We're excited to have you here. Welcome aboard. And I wanted to let people know that we need one person for the planning and for the parking recreations and Ward 2. So anybody wants to volunteer for Parks and Recreation Committee, please, you can contact Gio or contact me. We need somebody for Ward 2 in Parks and Recreations. And I wanted to invite everybody for the Family Crisis Center is organizing a fundraiser that is a poker tournament on May 16th. So you can have fun and support the Family Crisis Center. It's open to the public. And on behalf of the Catholic Church, we want to thank everybody for the support. We had enchilada fundraiser on Sunday and we sold 400 plates. So we want to thank the community for the support to our church.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to changes to posted agenda. Council, are there any items to be continued or withdrawn?
I'd
Okay.
like to withdraw item number 11D.
Item number 11B. Okay, item number 11B, right.
Motion to.
Item number 11B, council, is the second and final reading of ordinance 2025-05-02. I need a second now.
That's right, I said item D is Delta.
Delta. Okay, that would be to take action on the resolution for dumpsters. We have a motion. Now I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
Okay. Let's vote on removing that item.
Aye.
Aye.
City Secretary, council voted unanimously to remove 11D, which is take action on resolution to direct the dumpsters in Alpine Country Club Estates to be moved to the main entrance from 6790. Council voted unanimously to remove this item. Councilmember Stone is absent due to work commitments. Okay. All right. Are there any other items to be withdrawn? All right, moving on to items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion. I would like to remove item C, special use permit 2025-05. This is just a simple request, so we'll remove item C for separate discussion. Okay, are there any action items to be added to the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, are there any time-sensitive items? Seeing none, we're moving on to consent agenda. City Secretary, item C has been removed. If you would continue with the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's consent agenda now contains two items. Item A, approval of the April 15th, 2025 regular meeting minutes. And item B, approval of the excused absence of Councilor Eva Martinez from the April 15th, 2025 regular city council meeting.
Okay, I need a motion.
Mayor, I propose we approve the consent agenda items A and B.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Let's vote.
Aye.
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 City Secretary, Council, a vote voted to approve unanimously the consent agenda items A and items B. Okay, so moving on to items removed from the consent agenda. The item removed was approval of special use permit 2025-05-01, a special use permit allowing a short-term rental to be established at 307 East June Street. I asked to have that removed because I wanted to point something out to council, and I did have a phone call from one of the neighbors regarding this short-term rental. As we know, it has been in use, but as we heard, the reason that it has been is because it has been in the application process for a little while, and they are allowed to continue renting until council hears that. I do want to mention that this short-term rental, this property is not in compliance. Some years ago, they were approved to build on that lot, and they built what would be considered basically a tiny home. And then they were supposed to come in and build a primary structure, in which they never did that. So council may want to consider here going forward to look at our ordinance and to make sure that we decide whether we want to allow non-compliant properties to operate as short-term rentals because they never built their primary structure. City Manager?
Mayor, Jessica Isley, our building official, is also present tonight, that if she could have a minute to discuss the non-conforming of this property. I
Sure.
think it's important to allow her.
Come on up. Jessica, be sure to state your name and position into the microphone for the record, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jessica Isley, building official for the city of Alpine. I am.
Better be my friend, girl.
Okay, please remain quiet.
I'm here to discuss the item that was removed from the consent agenda, which is the short-term rental located at 307 East June Street. Based off of our ordinance, it's considered a non-conforming structure. It is something that was done where the primary structure was not built before the secondary structure or ADU was built. So technically, by our zoning ordinance, we wouldn't allow, and we're going to go over it a little bit this evening as well, the zoning ordinance that we are going to discuss, but it's not something that's been edited. It's been in our ordinance the whole time about the allowable occupancy to change for a non-conforming structure. So an occupancy change would be if somebody was to move into another building and they were gonna change it, and commercial thought would be from like a restaurant to a retail. That's a change of occupancy. So for this would be taking it from a residential use to a short-term rental use, would be allowing a non-conforming structure to become something different. And we're not trying to promote that because we don't want them to continue. I was not a part of the permitting process with that small building. I was here towards its completion, and it never had any finals or a certificate of occupancy for its actual usage as a residential house, because it wouldn't even comply. So I didn't know if you had any questions about that structure and why we have issues with it.
Okay, so are you saying that somebody could, I don't know, get a building or like a shed or something and then convert that unless we make these changes? What do you?
So exactly, the problem is because it's non-conforming, we don't look at it as an actual primary structure. It's considered a non-conforming structure on a lot. And so I don't know how it was ever permitted, because technically by our ordinance, you have to build a primary structure first. It would have to meet the requirements of a 1,000 square foot minimum in an R1. And so since it doesn't meet those requirements, it's not considered a single family residential home by our ordinance. However, we can't stop somebody from living there, but because it's considered whatever it is right now as they purchase it. But to change the occupancy and allow a permitting process to go forward to have a different type of occupancy is where we wouldn't allow something like that to happen. And so that's where the problem would be. And if somebody was to buy a vacant lot with a shed on it that was already existing, it was considered non-conforming, it wouldn't be something that we would want to turn into a short-term rental, because it would be a non-conforming structure.
So you're saying that could be a precedent?
Yeah, it could be a problem.
Okay.
I mean, it's already not allowable by our ordinance.
Councilmember Martinez?
I agree with you and with Jessica, what you said, that people have to follow the rules that the city has, and not everybody can have this exception. There has to be the rule for everybody, so I agree with what you say.
Councilmember Nance?
What's the square footage on the property right now? Do you
Um,
know, would April know?
I think it's like close to 400 square feet or less. It's very small.
So it's nowhere close to 1,000 minimum,
No,
the requirement.
and the setbacks don't even meet criteria. So when I was hired with the city, I don't know if it's even important. Before I worked for the city, I actually worked on that property. And so I was a part of the construction process of building that. And I didn't know any of the rules, but I was working.
Please
for a
remain
contractor.
quiet.
So I know that there was construction being made with previous building officials before. And so it was permitted somehow, because I remember there being inspections being done. So I don't know how that was ever allowable, but it doesn't meet the setbacks for even a primary structure because it sits too close to the rear of the property. So it could never conform to a primary structure based off of its location. You'd have to build a primary structure in the front of that property.
And then of the 54 pages of the new zoning regulations, would that affect this property at all? Are we affecting setbacks or anything on the new stuff? I can't recall.
So the setbacks, yes, it would change some of the things going forward, but it wouldn't affect this one because it sits like 5 feet from the property line. So it's more like an ADU, and what we would look at it by somebody that was going to build.
Can you
something like that.
explain what an ADU is?
An accessory dwelling unit, so like a mother-in-law suite, which is allowable with a primary structure.
And then the developer, it looks like, for them to even do that, so they didn't. Somehow it was permitted or it was not permitted.
I have no permits that show that it was permitted, but I know that it was being built with a previous building official that was here. I don't know if there's ever any permits done for it. I know that with completion, there was never a final because it finished completion with me being hired, and we never did a final on that property. So a final would be when you get your certificate of occupancy.
Gotcha.
So it ceased past its, so a permit only lasts for 180 days.
So there was
So-
never really any tacit approval or
No.
allowance by the city.
Yes.
And then it being that far back with the setback that far on the back end of the property, it looks like it was never intended to be a primary residence.
Never intended.
So just was it fully completed? It seems like the developer never fully completed the project, but
I don't know the full story. All I know is that some from what I've heard, that were gonna start with an accessory dwelling and they were gonna build a primary, which is.
One moment,
not allowed.
please. Abel, they're unable to hear in the back.
Is it me?
Hold tight, just 1 second. Okay, how about now? All right, thank you. All
Okay.
right, continue, please.
One more question here. So that is a R1, right? Not R2?
It's R1, I believe.
So I was thinking all Carpenter. I think
Yeah, all,
R1.
yeah, Carpenter.
And then if this is, if we, I know you've always run a tight ship on non-conforming properties where we don't want to create allowances for non-conforming properties, even on other things. If we allow a non-conformance like this to move forward in this regard, do you see any other ancillary ways that non-conforming properties could say that, oh, you allowed this?
The problem with offering a nonconformity of to continue and saying, yeah, that's okay this one time, and allowing others, is we're not following our ordinance, and our ordinance is our laws. And so our ordinance clearly states that we are not gonna allow a nonconformity to change its use or extend itself or have construction or, so if we do that, then we have to do it for everybody. And so what is the point of having an ordinance and laws?
Counselor Dance, I do foresee other properties that
Yeah.
come forward asking for non.
Okay. And then when you said based off use, you used the idea of a commercial property being used in two different ways. Is that actually, is there different roles of like, so we're not changing zoning from R1 to R2, but what did you call it?
It's a change of use in the sense that, yes, so a certificate of occupancy is given to a residential house when they're completed in construction. Typically, it happens from new construction. So new construction, they have a completion, they have a final, they get a certificate of occupancy. So the only other time that a certificate of occupancy is given to a residential is when you do the short-term rental process. So that they have an inspection, they go through that whole thing, even if they're not a new building, they're gonna have a safety inspection, they're gonna have all of those things done. And then they're gonna give a certificate of occupancy. That's the actual thing that we give to them when we're done with our, so for the building department to allow a non-conformity to have a new certificate of occupancy, it's going against our ordinance. Is pretty much the problem.
And they currently do not have a certificate of occupancy.
No, not that I've never issued one from our department.
Okay. I think that was all the questions I had.
Councilmember Escobedo?
So when this came up, did they go and get a permit from you? Or pay for one?
For what?
How they got on the agenda?
So anybody can apply for a short-term rental. I know that in the past, we've had a few that were denied that went through for parking issues. So there are certain aspects of the short-term rental process that nobody can be denied from putting an application in just for like a rezone or anything else. And right now, everything's online. So even with that being said, they didn't come to my office to give me the application. They did the application online. So when it was flagged as the property that had an inspection, that's when it was identified as a non-conforming structure.
And were they told?
I did advise the applicant earlier today, and she is available online from both.
If council has any questions for her.
I mean, I'm just wondering if it wasn't gonna be non-conforming, why would they want to pay a permit? Or not be advised in advance?
It has happened before with the parking situation with another location. They paid the application, they were denied, and they had paid. It's happened a couple times with multiple applications. It's just the scenario is a little bit different because it's not considered a parking situation. It's a non-conforming situation, which makes it. And based off of our short-term rental ordinance, even it says in section 9135 that they must meet the general zoning regulations as defined in Appendix C zoning of this code. So they have to comply with the non-conforming rule.
And how much was the permit?
The permits are $350 for any short-term rental or a special use permit.
This permit wasn't put in recently. Been how long, City Secretary?
Since they submitted the permit, it's been at least a few weeks. I wasn't sure if there was one that was caught up in the transition or not, but after looking at it, I think that it might have come in after we completed that transition, so not too long.
Okay,
Certainly at least probably around a month because we had to send letters.
okay, so it hasn't been years. No, okay. All right. Anything else, Councilmember Escobedo? Okay, Councilmember Stevens.
Thanks, Mayor. So looking at Brewster County CAD is built in 2001. It says it's 529 square feet. That's what the CAD report says. It's non-compliant. So the only way to make it compliant is to build a primary structure.
Yes, sir.
And if that gets built, because what's the minimum size that we have for our ADU, ACU, whatever it's called?
Accessory.
Accessory dwelling,
unit.
yeah. It cannot exceed the bulk or height of a primary structure is pretty much how it's written.
Okay.
So,
But is there a minimum size for an ADU?
no, there's not a minimum size, but for a primary structure, there is.
The minimum primary structure. So the only way to make this property compliant is to build a primary structure.
Yes, sir.
That's not fundamental.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
All right, city manager.
If we could just get a motion in a second.
I had a few more questions.
Okay.
One question. Do we have, I've heard of other people doing this where they connect two ADUs with a roof and a walkway. Could that increase the size of the unit? So it would almost be like, well, I guess if that's R1, it can still only be one single house, can't be duplex or anything else like that. But would they be able to take the unit that they actually have, create a walkway, create a similar unit to that walkway, and then you have a 570 and a 500 to 1100 feet?
Like a breezeway, in other words. Yeah, so I had a discussion with an architect recently about that information. It wouldn't be a problem if the setbacks were an issue,
So the
because
back-
it sits really close to that back lot and the side lot. So,
How far are they under the setback?
so I think based off the ordinance we have down that we haven't even adopted, we've only have one that we've discussed reducing. It's 20 feet or I think 10% of the lot that's already there. It's quite a ways. And then so the one that's sitting there now, the ADU that is there now is like 5 feet. It's 20% of the depth or not more than 20 feet. Or not less than 20.
There's no way to rectify that or remediate
No.
the setback on that.
Based off the ordinance we have right now, we are trying to shrink that, but we don't even have that adopted yet. So that's not even a rule that I can go by. I have to go off the ordinance that we have right now.
Yeah, that was one question. And then this would be a question, I guess, for the city. They did say that this had been used as an STR in the past,
They're using it right now until it goes through this process.
but it was permitted by us.
No,
It was never permitted as a STR.
no.
Okay. That was the question I had.
So I need a motion for approval of special use permit 2025-05-01. Okay, I need a motion. All right, no motion for approval of special use permit 2025-05-01, so the motion is dead. All right, moving on to reports and presentations. Reports and presentations have a maximum of 6 minutes on the clock. We have a presentation that the city manager has put on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's first presentation, our only presentation, is from our Director of Tourism, Chris Ruggier. He is actually online. He is spending some time with family, so he is attending by Zoom. And then we do have the presentation available for TVs.
Right.
Chris, whenever you are ready.
Hi, Chris.
Okay, hello. Well, I'm Chris Ruggia. I'm your Director of Tourism, and I'm going to give you a quick quarterly overview of how things went in the first quarter of 2025. Gia, if you could scroll down just a bit, we'll see that first chart. This is a snapshot of the first quarter in terms of hotel revenue and sales tax collections. What you're seeing there, the colored lines are this year, the darker gray is 2024, and the lighter gray is 2023. This hotel revenue, two of our hotels, our largest ones, had very generously shared their revenue information with me on a confidential basis, and so that enables me to track performance with them as a proxy for all of our hotels. So what you're seeing is that this year's first quarter, January, was just about exactly the same as last year, February a little bit more, and March a little bit more in addition for over last year. We matched 2023 for March. And seeing sales tax, January was lower than both of the last 2 years, but February and March were slightly above. both 2024 and 2023. One other data point I'd like to share with you. Since I made this chart, I looked at the governor's office travel statistics, and that shows the total direct tourism spending in Alpine. They do it statewide, or you can sort by community. And for Alpine, we see that $47 million were spent in 2024, not just the first quarter, but the whole year, calendar year last year. That is a lot, but it's 1 million less than 2024, and 2024 was 1 million less than 2023. That's somewhat alarming. We do see a downward trend, but if you look over a period of the last 10 years or so, you see a strong upward trend with a big spike at the pandemic, which we're all aware of, when folks really wanted to get out and get some space. We had a lot of hotel activity once things opened up again. And so that was a big spike. And so what we're seeing now as we come back down with that revenue, it still is keeping with the trend. So, so over the long term, we're still trending up, but in the short term, we're trending down. Just wanted you to be aware of that. So Gio, if you could scroll ahead, please. This is a look at where our visitors are coming from. This is, I believe this is this is just for the quarter. And we're seeing Odessa and Midland by far are our top market that sends us the most people and contribute the most funds. That's followed by San Antonio, which has come up in the rankings considerably over the last 4 or 5 years. Dallas-Fort Worth is third. They've always been a real strong market for us. El Paso is fourth. That is also new over the last, or the recent period, I'd say. When I first started helping the city with tourism promotion, El Paso was nowhere near this high. Austin is then next, and followed by Houston. Then we see some Panhandle in northern West Texas, Lubbock, San Angelo, Abilene, Sweetwater. Those are all fairly new, emerging, I'd say, markets for us. And the last one, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, that's the first time I've seen a non-Texas market show up in this kind of report. So that relationship with the Albuquerque area is growing. It's a recent thing and very welcome. So if you could then scroll some more, Gio. Now we're looking at the actual dollars as opposed to the number of people. The chart before showed the percentage of visitors and the percentage of spending. And now you're seeing the percentage, let's see, thank you for zooming in. You see the percentage of visitor spending, the average transaction amount, and then the percentage of people. It's just a different view of that. And again, we see Midland, Odessa, 26% of our total travel spending is coming from Permian Basin. The average expenditure is less, which is not surprising. A lot of times that average expenditure is kicked up by the hotel. That's often the single biggest expense that a visitor will have. And so you see folks from farther away having a higher percentage. But this is just a view of where that spending's coming from. And then Gio, if you could move on. Then one of the things, this is National Travel and Tourism Week, as you'll remember from the proclamation you did last month. And so one of the things I wanted to point out is the impact that our visitor expenditures have on our local market. And one of the things that we see, particularly in restaurants, 76% of the spending that was captured in our visitor dashboard was from visitors. So only, 24% of our restaurant revenue is coming from locals. So we can really all thank our visitors for having the selection of dining options that we have, because they're being carried by the visitor. And then if you could scroll down to the final, then the overall visitor spending is 61% that we're seeing. That's all the credit card activity that's captured. Now, the way that Zardico works, it tracks mobile phones that are opted in to an app to track their location. So it's anonymized. Nobody ever knows whose phone it is. But what it can do is match those phone IDs with credit cards. So once again, we never know exactly who did what, but we can tell where, what phone the credit cards identified with, and that tells us if it's a visitor, where they're from. It gives us a general market information. So given that, that shows that a good portion of the economic activity in general in Alpine is our visitors as well. So then the last thing I want to share with you is a report from Spirits of the West. I spoke with Lance Johnson, the director of Art Walk, and he told me that attendance was lower than they expected. One of the things that was pressing or restricting how much visitation they could have was actually the Army folks that are filling hotels. Lance had found that 350 of our rooms were occupied by military personnel. Now that's great for our hotel industry, especially looking forward to the next 2 months. That's going to be revenue that's really important for them when we're in a slow point as things heat up. It will affect our hotel occupancy tax collections because those federal employees don't pay the hot tax. And in this case, it limited the number of rooms that were available to visitors. Now, the people that Lance interviewed, he interviewed a sample of the visitation over a certain period on Saturday evening, which was their busiest time. And he said of the 120 people that he interviewed, only 4 were locals. So that shows that Spirits of the West performed very well in communicating to out-of-town folks. But I really think that limitation of hotel rooms was, I would say that what that's doing, it's raising our floor, but also lowering our ceiling of what we can do in a given weekend for visitation. So that's something that you all should be aware of. Neither good nor bad, but it's a thing. So that was pretty much everything I wanted to share with you about the last quarter and then our most recent event, if any of you have questions.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yeah, so, hey, Chris, great report as always. Can you go back to your, really your first chart? Because I want to make sure I understand. What I think I heard was his revenue for 2025 is lower than 24 and lower than 23. But that's not what I see on the collections for Q1 for 2025.
That's right. Rick, that revenue trend I was talking about, I did not show you in a chart. That was from the state of Texas, what they capture. And I noted that after I created your packet slides, so I didn't have it available for you. What the state does is every year they give you like, here's each calendar year's economic impact of tourism. And so they'll share local and state tax collections for each county or community. And they'll have the total direct travel spending as a statistic. And that was what I was talking about, that we're seeing trend downwards. The 2 charts that you're seeing are the hotel revenue only. It's just 2 of our largest hotels that compiles that, and then the sales tax. And those are tracking really close, as you'll notice. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Councilmember Escobedo?
I'm just wondering why on the towns, how were those selected? Like, I don't see like many like from like, there's no California or anything like that on there.
Well, the way that they arise, the way we get that information, it's Zartico is the company that provides us with the visitor dashboard. And that's what I was describing right at the end, where it tracks or it collects information from mobile phones. So if say you've got the weather app on your phone and you've allowed it to track your location, that information then is compiled and resold. It's anonymized, so nobody knows it was you, but that's how that works. And so those collections of phone location data are then compiled into this dashboard that we partner with Marfa to pay for. And that tells us then all the phones that were visitors, this percentage of them have as their primary home location these locations. And it's not surprising to me that we're not seeing in our top 10, we're not seeing out of state, because basically since I started working with the city, we've seen 85% or more of our visitors are from within the state of Texas. And so while we do get, that means 15% of our visitation would be from out of state or international. None of those communities are likely to be in our top 10 of individual communities, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Councilmember Nance?
Chris, a couple things. So you said our total tourism dollars have dropped in the last 3 years?
That's what the governor's office is reporting, yes.
Okay, and then question, if we look at the county, because I know you work with the county some too and share data and stuff, what do they look like over the last 3 years?
That's a really good question, and I will need to look at the county's report. What I've observed, but I don't have the numbers, is that growth has been steady and fairly robust, and I would attribute that to the really explosion of short-term rentals in South County. So the Brewster County their hotel tax collections have been really strong and probably growing. Their budgets have been really healthy. But what I don't know is that's only the spending on hotels, and the governor's office is tracking the total direct travel spending, which it might well be that that's flat or even going down, even though you're getting more hotel business. It just might mean people are spending less on restaurants and things like that. So I don't have that, but I can look it up.
Okay, because I was thinking that it's gone up pretty dramatically in South County over the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I agree with you. And a lot of that, I would point to the just the proliferation of additional units available to rent. And there's clearly the market for it.
And that's where my mind was going, when we run our sales tax numbers on all this kind of stuff, that the majority, because the county, when 2% of the sales tax, we get 1.5 and they get 0.5. And when we actually look at that, it's about 600,000 to 700,000 of sales tax that goes to the county. So a lot of people do their shopping in the city, but then they stay down there in South County. So I'm wondering as there's more options in South County, they're going to see their HOT revenues go up. And if they get more options and everything else, maybe more sales tax dollars down there as well. So I just think we need to be cognizant, and I'd love to see a partnership between the city and the county for a chamber or anything else like that. Not an issue with you, but just about the growth in South County.
Sure. And if you all would like for me to do, I mean, certainly for the state numbers, I can run comparisons with the county or other communities, if that's something that you want to see.
I would be interested in seeing the counties to see if they're facing the same issues, if it's a lowering in aggregate demand, or if it's we're losing and they're gaining.
Some of the, I should be able to get some of the Zartico data, because when we started that dashboard, we covered the whole Tri-County area because we wanted to know, and then we can, for some things, so some of the numbers I get are for the whole Tri-County, and we're really just looking at a regional picture, and others I can filter down and only show Alpine. So I should be able to get some, and I can certainly get the total spending and things like that from the governor's office stuff. I should be able to get countywide, though it probably will include Alpine. It might be hard to sort that out. I might have to ask their research people exactly how that works.
The other thing I was going to mention here is the almost like a cost of client acquisition to get those people down here. So when we come back in, we can see somebody from San Antonio or Austin is bringing in about twice the amount of value as somebody from Odessa, even though we're getting a lot more Odessa people there. Is it possible to take the HOT dollars that are spent outside of the city, so in all these areas, and so we have 20% of our people coming from Midland, Odessa. Do we spend 20% of our HOT dollars in that market?
That's a good question. We have to spread that question across all of the grants, because each of our awarded grants has advertising attached to it. And each of those events or programs are making their own decisions. I'm approving them, making sure they're legal and answering their questions. But But I would say that the majority of what we're doing is actually kind of statewide. There's quite a bit of it is the magazine ads with that we co-op with Marfa and Fort Davis. We're kind of sending a regional visitation message out to the whole state is a lot of what we're doing. And then we're active with social media ads. But once again, I'm taking advantage of the algorithms to find, I target the state, and I try and make sure that my ad is really informative so that the machine learning can find us the most interested audience. So I actually target less on social than I used to. So I couldn't answer the question there.
Because where my mind was going and just asking your opinion is, and being on Art Walk and Spirits Board in the past, Art Walk brings a lot of people in from Midland, Odessa. So those people may be, organizations and events are going to target kind of the same people that they've gone to, because that's, just inertia. But I guess the question I had is, does it make sense with Visit Alpine dollars to go off and maybe do targeted advertising in San Antonio or Austin or anything else? So that, then we're getting $119 per visit instead of 67.
It absolutely does, yes. And I'm very closely looking at what we're calling opportunity markets, like San Angelo. Though it's low on that list, it appears on that list. And we're really looking at, as I work with the reps from Zardico, that's part of our account, is that I have a monthly or so meeting with those guys, and we identified San Angelo as a good opportunity to build. And so I would say that Permian Basin is our low-hanging fruit. We want to keep the message out there to keep inviting them back, but absolutely focus on especially like, look at our situation now where we have fewer rooms than we used to. In that situation, we want to invite fewer people that spend more to even out, our economy's benefit.
And one final question, I would just be interested in seeing, because Alpine is a different market than Marfa. Do you have information? I would be interested in comparing this information to a visitor to Fort Davis and a visitor to Marfa to see the spend on those two markets.
I don't have that for Fort Davis, but actually the most recent report that we got from Zardico was a comparison of the phones that were observed at Alpine accommodations versus the ones observed at Marfa accommodations. So I have some of that to hand that I could email to council, or however I could email it to Geo to distribute to you all.
I'm just interested in the different clientele in each market.
Sure.
Councilmember Martinez.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for the
Hi.
report. It's great. I have a question for you. You mentioned that all the hotels are occupied already. So my question is, for the future events that we are hosting in Alpine, like like Viva Big Band Festival, they come a lot of people from out of town. Do we have the same problem to find a hotel available?
Potentially so, yeah. I was talking with Cowboy Poetry with Kay Noel, who was working with that. They're very concerned because it's basically half of our hotel rooms are currently occupied. And once again, for May and June, I think that's great because that's often our slow time. It won't show up in our hotel occupancy tax to that benefit, but it absolutely will help our hotel industry. And those people are going to be, going to our restaurants and buying our groceries and things like that. So their presence is a real boost when we're slow. But when we want to invite a lot of people to town, it absolutely is a concern. And I'm not sure what to do about it. I read in the paper that Presidio County was looking at accommodation for them building something, but I have heard mixed things since and nothing specific. So
What will be other options that we could offer, the city, they could offer to the tourists when they come in, advertising the B&B or going to Marfa, or what would be another option for the people who are coming?
some people who went to Spirits of the West stayed in Fort Stockton, which is not a great experience if you're, coming for a party at night, then having to drive an hour. So I don't have a good answer for you right now.
City manager.
So, I mean, we do advertise anyone who's paying and current on their hotel tax. I do believe it includes some of our STRs. So currently, if you've made your reservations before the presidential declaration went through, so you had reservations in May or June, July, August, several of the hotels are actually displacing the military at that time. So the military is fully aware that if those rooms were reserved ahead of time, that the military personnel has to be reassigned. They are mostly going to Fort Stockton, staying there, and then once that reservation ends, they're coming back over here. So the hotels are also trying to manage it as well, because they do want to honor all of the reservations that were made ahead of time.
Good. That's good news. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on to information and discussion items. Discussion item A, Councilmember Stevens.
Mayor, so this is about discussing the roads at the Alpine Country Club Estates. I'm glad Robert and Richard are here because I'm going to walk through a little bit of history about what's gone on in the past, and as new council members coming on board, I think it's going to be helpful for everyone's good base. And also want to thank everyone for the comments from Country Club Estates. Not an easy issue, but let's walk through, and the notes I put together, it is all about how do we get the roads worked on. So some background. In early 1987, the state legislature passed a law that stopped cities from being able to annex property into a city that did not directly border the city, with one of the reasons being the issues we now face with the road in Alpine Country Club Estates. The law went into effect on the 1st of September, 1987. In July of 1987, the city council annexed Alpine Country Club Estates into the city. Even though they knew the law had passed and they waited, it wouldn't have happened in September 1987 for precisely the issues associated with the road. The result that we have is that Alpine Country Club Estates has the equivalent of 10% of the roughly 1,000 city blocks of roads in Alpine. The Alpine Country Club Estates Road did not have the proper base once under the driving surface, and they were not crowned. And we've talked about that somewhat. The roads have been an issue since, at least 2016. And Sandra, thanks for providing your perspective for the last 23 years, because my sense is it's been around a lot longer than that. The cost to rebuild the roads has always been the fundamental issue. It's beyond the city budget. And the city, and we've talked about some options in the past regarding the roads that have included a number of things. One, milling the main road and doing something like Sierra Lorena has, while maintaining the neighborhood streets. There was some huge pushback when that was even put on the table. That was certainly an option. The second option was to extend Loop Drive on the backside of Alpine Country Club Estates to build a short road. Therefore, you shorten the amount of material you need to go in, and the cost to do that, because of putting the drainage system and working with the county and the other issues, also was not cost effective. The rebuild of the neighborhood roads like Kenova, Cable, I think that's right, I'm pronouncing, I'm not sure, Long Branch, has actually worked out reasonably well the second time those roads have been done. Then the short term has been fix the main road, the hot patch, and rebuild the main road section by section. That's been the strategy. Funding has been the primary issue, as I mentioned. This year, the city budget is $1.3 million for roads. About 10% of the budget has been allocated to Country Club Estates. When the rebuild was done on the area, that's what I call the white roads out there, Eddie and the team completely rebuilt that base. So that was the big issue. Lousy base, they completely dug it all up. There were piles of new calicos out there, got it laid down, and then they oiled it and worked their way through. The challenge is that the main road approach is not working. The team has been using the hot patch machine a lot, but the fact is they can't keep up. And because we have other streets in the city that are under completely rebuilt, and I don't know, Megan, we've got what, 15 streets under rebuild right now? Yeah, so they've been trying to work all of it. And the key issues, if you go out to Alpine Country Club Estates, As you go down the main road, as was pointed out, you make that first curve, that area has gone from passable to being non-passable. You then go up the hill, because of the water was pointed out earlier, is allows to drain off. The hill is actually in pretty good shape. Go up the top though, that has also become almost non-passable. So it's a really difficult issue for everyone out there because those two are the problems. We know that heavy trucks negatively impact the streets. It happens across all of Alpine. Certainly, when you look at the data, and I've done a fair amount of research on the data, you know, when you put a 35,000-pound truck out there with 3 axles, you have significantly more pressure on there. When you use an 18-wheeler that's got more axles, you have less pressure. But, you know, the challenge is we do in fact have trash trucks that go out there plus under construction. The focus that I want to talk about, and that's what my head has been, is all about how do we fix the Country Club Estates main road. About 3 months ago, the city had a demonstration of what is called an asphalt zipper on Murphy that allows the full depth up to 12 inches in the road, reclamation and soil stabilization, which is about making good road base so the material can then be graded, compacted, and then new chip seal applied. And in addition, the city manager, Darren and I have both been out there. We've seen the results for that. It really mills up that road, takes the asphalt, mills it in. It gets injected with water. Then what happens, you come back over and compact it. Actually, first you grade it, crown it, then compact it. And it's the compaction that's really important. If you look at what goes on at the airport, because we did runway 1 and 19, 3 years ago, Megan?
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 years ago. In addition to doing that, what they do is actually mixing Portland cement that gives even a much stronger base. But they're out there, you're landing aircraft as many as, you know, about the weight of a trash truck, you know, 25, 30,000 pounds. But, and they're only on essentially 3 wheels, but they're not sitting there very long and it moves through. The zipper that we looked at does in days what it now currently takes us weeks to go do. And for those out of Long Branch, it took literally, I think probably 4 or 5 months to come to redo that. Again, we had to dig it up. The zipper does in days what it takes in weeks. And the zipper, which is an action item for council this evening, if that's approved, will provide significant capability. Seguin, Texas, which Darren and I were talking earlier, and I know Megan, you know, they really use the zipper to their benefit. They are doing 4 to 5 miles of road a year in Seguin using the zipper, and they're saving about $19 million over 6 years. The good news is they have a greater population. They have about 29,000 people, so about 5 times what we have. But the bottom line message is they have significantly improved their road processing time and improve it. And the current strategy is that, you know, the first road to be focused on, because Megan has said, that's where we train our folks, go out to Country Club Estates, not that much traffic, got a lot of road to get worked, and being able to zip it, in my view, those 2 sections are really bad. Would be the first real opportunity to get the zipping done. And again, for those, I don't know, how many blocks did we do, Megan, on Murphy? Was it 3 blocks? 3 or 4?
I think it was closer to 5.
And how long did it take to zip that with the machine they brought in?
They started about 10 and they were done before lunch.
Yeah, so essentially that 5-block area is the same size as one of the areas at the Country Club Estate. So probably in 2 days, they could get all that zipped.
From start to finish, they had it compacted, graded, before 5.
Yeah, before 5. So, really a significant improvement. And to me, that technology is really going to be helpful. I think I said the near term, and I know we're going to get into this in the discussion, the action item. My view is, unfortunately, we're kind of stuck, and I don't know, Megan, if between now and then, although I know the rain works it, do we have any capacity to get a blade out there to fill in the potholes? And I know Eddie and the guys are busy.
So they've been going out there on the weekends.
Okay.
Because they did have the schedule that was approved or given into council regarding the different blocks that they wanted to accomplish this year.
Yeah.
So they've gone out there, I believe, 2 weekends in a row to try to get some of the potholes. They've been moving around. They are working it. It just, not everyone wants to work a weekend.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But as indicated, and I've talked to several people, that's a perfect training area. So I know a couple years ago, we invested the 100,000, Jared came out and we did a portion of it. And then we utilized it last year for training and they went out and did another portion of it so that the guys could learn the heavy equipment. So the idea really is section by section by section, to get the guys out there and to, one, learn the equipment, have the safety availability without having the traffic, and then just work through the process.
Yeah. What's your confidence level, assuming we approve the action item, which gets the new front end loader and the zipper? What's your confidence of it being available in the July timeframe?
So I don't know how long it's gonna take for us to actually get the zipper. The approval obviously is the first part, because depending on when it approves is, when we'll get it. I do wanna say by the end of this fiscal year, I don't think there'll be a huge turnaround. The loaders is an easy deal. We have held off on getting the loader, even though council's approved it, because government capital is thinking they may be able to get us a lower interest rate with the two pieces. But once we get the zipper, we get into pending rain. Ideally, it's the perfect opportunity then for them to start learning how to use it out there.
So let's assume we don't start until August. So here we are, May, June, July, August. I'm just talking realistically 4 months. What can we do to continue to help to get those two really bad spots fixed?
My understanding is Eddie is getting his team to go out there to address all the spots that he can.
Okay. Okay.
I don't wanna
Yeah.
put him on a
Yeah.
timeline because everything always changes.
Okay, so, if we can, and I appreciate, keep me up to speed, and I'll tell you, Country Club Estates has got a really good, network of people communicating. The email lists have gotten a whole lot stronger, and then there's also the text messages, because I've seen them all, and I thanks everyone for including me on that. And then we just need to share the information as best we can.
I think as he gets something scheduled, I know the last weekend they were out there, it was kind of a last minute getting all of the team to go out there.
Yeah.
His assistant director has been really good at filling in on the weekends, trying to get them encouraged. As we know, dates, depending on, once again, if it's raining, I mean, I'm gonna
We pray for
take the
rain.
rain. We'll let you know, and then you can kind of keep the Country Club Estates individuals updated.
Okay, good. So that's kind of the summary. And everyone out there says, let's get the zipper, and we're fully agreed. My view is let's go get the zipper because it's the best shot. And in my experience, having been Ken Rhodes a lot, I used to have responsibility for 130 million square feet of facilities-based roads. The zipper is a huge improvement. So it'll speed up the process.
Councilmember Martinez?
I hope you don't get impatient with us. We're trying to help you, all of you, and we will try the best to try to fix those problems that you have. I have a friend that she lives there, and her husband has been very ill, and then he almost died because at the time that they went and get him and take it out of there, they have to drive really slow. So I live personally your issues and your problems, and I drive that many times to go and dog sitting my friend's dog. So I know what you're talking about. So we will do the best that we can to help you.
Councilmember Escobedo? Councilmember Nance?
One, Megan, was originally, has there ever been an engineering study done out there, kind of what the gentleman mentioned on drainage and stuff like that, crowning, to make that road? I think that the entire purpose from our end is we're never gonna get enough tax revenue from that area to provide the road, so our only way we can fix it is lower the cost of paving or lengthen the time that the paving actually stays together. Have we ever had an engineering study on anything like that to see if there's anything we can do to lengthen?
The only engineering study was the street survey, and that was done in 2018, and that just came in and they told us good, bad, ugly.
Along the road before it needed to be repaved.
You got it, yeah. And it was ugly.
Okay, so that we've never really had an engineering study to see if there's anything we could do on it.
No, and Geo may be able to help find it, but I don't even think there's really a clear development agreement that outlines that road and the capacity in which it was built.
And there is no curbing or anything, right?
No.
And as the gentleman mentioned too, so then with the water removal off that side, was that just done by the city or when they repaved the road or?
So I know some of the residents have put in some of the burns as far as building it up a little bit to keep the water off some of their properties. But I don't believe the city, except for maybe towards the creek area, the main strip. And that would just be excess material being pushed to the side.
It's not been repaved. That's the challenge. And it has to do with the base material. So when we redid the road that I talked about, what I call the lighter roads, the size of the rocks and everything that came out of there is clear. Literally, they took a blade, ran it across, smoothed it out, put on the asphalt, and that was the road.
And so the Country Club Road, when Jarrett started to rebuild that one section, I mean, it's like little boulders.
Yeah.
There's no buffer between the two.
So it's not a good job or it just got wore down?
No, it wasn't a good job. Even, I'm gonna be off on the road. Logan and what's the other road that goes into Logan? Mingo. Yeah, Mingo, thank you. Mingo and Logan, there was a rock this big that sat out there for a long time. I actually put a couple cones there. And when Eddie dug it out, it was like an iceberg. What you saw at the top, the rest was down below.
I was gonna say a couple of other things here. Sure. So the engineering study, one thing, Jessica and I had a affordable housing symposium and I've harped with Mr. Carey on this as well before. But I think it needs to become common knowledge, the way that cities actually get finances on property taxes. And as Mr. Freeland said, you guys pay a lot of taxes out there, absolutely. But people never think of taxes from the perspective of value per acre. So when you look in town, I live on an eighth of an acre lot, just a simple starter home over here that the CAD tells me is worth about 275,000. But because of the size of the acre and there's a lot of density in that area, I'm guessing what are lot sizes out in the country club? 5 or 10 acres or not that big? 1 acre.
Yeah, most of an acre, yeah.
And if a home's that going for $500,000, then we're looking at about $500,000 per acre is the value. So the city's getting property tax on $500,000 for the use of 1 acre of land. I was just gonna say, there's a home worth 2 million, or no, 1.2 million over here, kind of close to where I'm at, but it takes up 2 acres. Why that's important is a home, just to run math real quick on people, $500,000 home on 1 acre is $500,000 for an acre. If you took my home at, let's just say 250,000 on an eighth of an acre, 8 times that we're looking at $2 million per acre. So my home, which is a very simple home, to the city is worth 4 times the value of a home out there. And that's why the density is important in the city. You don't have to do one of 3 things: lower services, increase taxes, or get more people out there to socialize the cost of the road. Which comes back, I learned something from Mr. Stevens over a year ago because he's been a bulldog on getting stuff out there to kind of work on that. He said originally there was going to be 3 parts to that subdivision out there, and I think only 1 got completed. It becomes a lot easier for the city to pave that if there's more homes out there or homes along that road, so they're socializing the cost. Up until that point, our only option is really just lower the cost of paving or extend the life of the roads.
So, and my view is the zipper is gonna lower the cost of paving, not only benefit Country Club Estates, benefits the whole city. And I get back to Seguin, they are to the point where the number of zippers they're using allows them to redo their roads. I think the Head Streets guy said like every 7 or 8 years, which meant that'd be a blessing in Alpine. That would be a huge blessing. So.
Okay, anything else, council? Okay, all right. And with that, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, 7:08 PM. Terry.
All right, Charles. We need this. Zip it all.
right, it's 7:12 PM and we are now back in session. All right, so next information or discussion item is Councilmember Stevens.
Thanks very much. Mayor, so this is all about giving council an update on the testing of data using decimeter at Hotel Ritchie and comparing it to the Alpine noise ordinance. If you recall, you had a discussion about is the noise ordinance the right level? That's in our ordinances, and the music committee had been working that. Oh, Chris is still on the line. Thank you. So we went over to the Hotel Ritchie, the band cranked up, and we measured data. Darren was there, Reagan were there. We put a, if you look at the diagram in your packet, where it says front stage, we put a meter there, and then we had other meters we used as well. So at the stage, it was 90 dB. Okay, so, and the band says that's kind of about the sound, the level they normally play. Chief was there on the corner on 4th and East Murphy, and he measured 65 dB. Let's see, Officer Juarez was all the way back 4th Street, and he measured 55 dB. I was at the fence at 75 dB, and then I walked over to the house on South 5th. Music was 55 dB, and then a truck drove by at 75 dB. My sense is, and if you look at then the noise ordinance overview that we have, you know, maximum sound levels as measured 200 feet away from the property line, it kind of gives you what our ordinance is. And then it says with live music permit, you know, 75 dB up to 2 AM. The good news in my view was this band who plays over there, if you go to Hotel Ritchie, it's reasonable. The sound was reasonable. I think we've got a good noise ordinance. And looking for the future, Hotel Ritchie is going to move their stage from the current location over towards this future stage, which will then cause the sound to head in a different direction, which will make it even less on 4th Street. So it'll stay essentially in the commercial area. But I think it's a good test to be able to use. I've got, you know, 2 sound meters that I bought. Of course, the chief's got the meters they use when people call out, but I've told people you don't want to borrow sound meters, use it, because it's really helpful. It gives a min and a max. But I think the bottom line was it was a really good test, and I think it validates the noise levels that we have within our ordinance, and that to me was the most important for all of us with real data.
Great.
Questions for the chief or for Chris, or additional comments? Chris, you want to make?
Well, I would second everything that you said. I would let you all know that at our most recent music advisory board meeting, we discussed the test and the ordinance in general. And the most questions that the music advisory board members had were about enforcement. I think we were all pretty clear that the vast majority of live music in town is not violating the ordinance as written and is not likely to. What I've often seen is it's really DJs and recorded music that are more often exceeding those limits. But most of their questions were about enforcement. And one of our board members in particular wondered if enforcement should be specified in the ordinance. She was asking a lot of questions about, you know, well, how many warnings does a venue get, and, you know, trying to find that balance of being understanding and trying to encourage positive behavior while also not giving the sense that the ordinance is not serious. So that's something that the APD deals with on every ordinance. So I certainly have faith in their skill and you know, judgment on those areas. But I thought I'd just mention that was what the direction, the discussion from the music advisory board took.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Nance.
I guess, Chris, a couple questions for you. The noise ordinance, I know that was you that helped build that out and everything. What was that built off of? Was it another city or?
Yeah, it was Fredericksburg's ordinance. It was pretty close to that in the levels that we found. Though Chief Lasoya, he had taken some readings of a touring band that was playing at the Crystal as a benchmark for how loud is music in town these days. So we incorporated that information into those numbers as well. But it was most closely based on Fredericksburg's ordinance.
And then one comment and then another question. So I like having the truck in there being 75 decibels. What that reminds me of is if there's a concert, it seems like people aren't agitated by the decibel level or the loudness of the sound. It's more just the consistency of the sound. A band that's consistently 55 decibels compared to, a truck driving by at 75. The one question I had for you, Chris, is can you go into a little more detail that I didn't understand? Can you define the music appreciation venue compared to, or the one-time permits compared to the other annual permits?
Oh, well, both of them do the same thing. Well, they're only allowable for live music since the chief observed at that Crystal Bar concert that the DJ music before and after the band was considerably louder. But that's not your question. What the permit does is if you look at that overview of the ordinance, you've got that cascade of decibel levels over time in commercial and residential, daytime, evening, and night. And so what the permit does is you're getting permission for live music, and it buys you 10 decibels louder at each of those stages. So in the evening, you can basically make daytime level noise, and at night you can make evening level noise if you've got the permit. The one-time permit is that's if you're having a festival, and the official music venue process basically buys a venue a standing permit through the year.
Okay. And is that a similar option where you can buy and to get a little bit more decibel level? Was that done in Fredericksburg?
That's a good question, and I'm not positive. It was important to us as a music-friendly community to try and, well, we also thought that becoming an official venue might be something that that they would want to promote and something that we could use to build community. But I can't remember to answer.
All I was really wondering is if that's not uncommon. When I heard that, I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah. Hopefully we were totally original and made it up, but I can't tell you that for sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Escobedo.
I think this is a pretty good report. I'm just wondering if y'all have taken it up to the music advisory board members yet or not.
Yes.
What was their thoughts?
When we first brought up the ordinance back when it was originally passed, there was a lot of concern actually that it was giving enough leeway, but I think in practice we've found that it does. And most recently when we discussed it, they were quite happy with the ordinance in general. They just had questions about, well, how many complaints are there, and do they get warnings, or that they were really wondering about those details. And so maybe I might ask Chief Lasoya to if he can make it to their next meeting, because he'd probably be the one who could answer their questions best about enforcement.
I do also think that maybe stage to the future place will be good at the Ritchie.
Okay, Councilmember Martinez.
I'm curious, why do they check the noise on just on the Ritchie? Is because
It was just a test.
Oh, just a
venue.
test
That's all it was,
venue.
was we talked about it in council, let's go try it out, see what it sounds like, so we got
Yeah.
real objective as opposed to, well, here are the numbers, but none of us really understood what those numbers were.
yeah, okay, because we talked to go and check other places too, but I was just wondering, so thank you, that answered my question. And another question for you, Chris, how long these noise ordinance have been effective? You
It's
said that,
been a couple of years, I think.
It was
But-
passed in 2022.
Oh, well then 3.
So before you didn't have measurements, everybody can have the music that they want to, or?
Well, it was all based on complaints. And so,
Oh.
if a neighbor complained multiple times, then APD would shut down the event. And so what this gave was expectations for the venues so that they knew if they were following the rules, they would be allowed, even if they have a neighbor that doesn't like it, there's a reasonable standard they can meet and be okay. Because otherwise it really was at the whim of somebody. And when we went to the Ritchie, one of the reasons that we decided to do that, that particular location, besides it was just one place to choose and it was easy to get to because part of our band was Mateo, who, runs the Ritchie. But they've also had a lot of complaints from one specific neighbor. And so we wanted to measure that. And when we find is that the council members present, they all felt that the noise was reasonable in the neighborhood. But even a little bit of noise sometimes doesn't make a neighbor happy. And so it's their right to complain, but we all have to have the same rules that we can play by. So
Yes, coming up, chief. But you get the complaints.
Prior to the ordinance, what we were using the state law of disorderly conduct. And basically the state has a law in reference to loud music and it falls under the disorderly conduct. And theirs was 85 decibel meters, decibel reading for the meters. And so that happened most of the time. And so a lot of what the enforcement is we don't want to be heavy-handed. We don't want to ruin somebody's good time, especially if it's not out of hand. It would be different if it was total chaos. But so normally they would get a warning. Hey, please turn it down. The number one places that we used to get complaints about are, well, actually two. The Catholic Church, when the Catholic Church would have their dance on the patio, it's out. I mean, because it's right against them. Yeah, it's right against the mountain, and it's like an amphitheater right there. So, and the other one would be the Crystal Bar, the way that it was set up. And so those were the places that we get the most complaints about. And understand the one thing that we were talking about is there is a difference between a DJ or just playing the jukebox up too loud, because that does make a difference. It has to be a live music venue or a live music in order to be considered part of the some of the reasons that it's a higher level, because we found out that like the Crystal Bar, they would have a DJ. Well, the entire time the DJ is yelling into the microphone and it sounds just horrible. And people don't want to hear that. They'd rather just hear the music. And so that was another reason for the complaints. So.
I was just thinking, maybe in the future, can they put extra cushion on those places that they have?
Right. And so like Mr. Stevens is explaining, the way that the Ritchie has their new stations that they're going to be moving to, they're basically surrounded, and it's facing towards the audience, and then they have a good coverage around it. So, well, it should bring some of the complaints down.
Does the cars and trucks do that qualify for these too? So, but what do you do?
So, like Mr. Stevens was explaining as well, when the car passes by, the meter jumps up higher, and so there's vehicles that are louder, unfortunately. But we have to have the correct distance on the readings as well to make sure that we have the appropriate information to enforce the ordinance on them. So.
Thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hey, Mayor, just a comment. You asked about Fredericksburg. with the same sound levels as Fredericksburg has.
Yeah.
And they are getting ready to tighten theirs. It was in the paper and all that, but we have the exact same numbers they have.
And I believe we copied some of it.
Yeah, it's.
I don't want to ruin our,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
our pat on the back. I think we copied somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as our, because of Texas being having the music friendly communities. I think that's part of why we went that route, so.
All right.
Coming back.
Thank you. All right, great. All right, so let's move on to discussion item C, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Discussion item C is to discuss using hot funds to support the Music Advisory Board members by covering their lodging to attend the regional music friendly meeting in Odessa, Texas. So Chris had sent me an email. There's an upcoming regional meeting in Odessa. As you know, Alpine is a music friendly community. And he had offered to utilize some of the funds he has available in the general fund of it, because there's a little, you got your grants, you got your advertising. To help support our current board members if they want to attend this meeting. So I'm not seeking formal approval, but we wanted to make you aware that this is an opportunity to provide additional knowledge and training to our board members in a very, very specific area, i.e. the music side of it. As well, we do have a little bit of that money with the hot funds that could cover it. So I wanted to have Chris, because stay on board here, to kind of explain his thought process in providing them this resource. Chris?
Hello again. So yeah, we are a music friendly community, as we've mentioned a few times, and there's enough of them that we have regional groups now. And so every month I get on a call with my counterparts at El Paso, Odessa, Lubbock, Amarillo, Dalhart, Sweetwater, and San Angelo. And the Texas Music Office out of the governor's office runs this program, and they would like for the regional groups to have in-person meetings once a year. And this will be our first one. It's going to be hosted in Odessa. And we're trying to encourage as many of our various music advisory board or committee members to attend as possible. And when we do our budgeting every year for the hotel occupancy tax, as you know, we do the grants program, and under the categories of the law, we also budget a certain amount, a small amount for city-driven projects. And the arts budget, that's what we use for, like when we did the midweek mercantile at the visitor center, we would pay the musicians out of that. So we'll do occasional city-based arts programs with a small amount that we set aside out of the arts category. And I think this would be, we still have some of that available in this fiscal year. We haven't used much of that set aside. And so with a little bit of that, I think we might get, it would make it easier for our music friendly our music advisory board members. And two of them are musicians that I've spoken to, and they both expressed interest. And I think it would make a big difference to make them able to attend if we could help cover the cost of the room.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris. That makes perfect sense to me. Does anybody have anything? Councilmember Stevens?
How much are you talking about?
Well, it's at the Marriott in Odessa, and so each of them is gonna probably be $125, something like that, for the night.
Yeah, my view on this is, we ask them to volunteer. This is not a paid job they've got. The least we can do is pay their hotel costs. So
How many they are? How many there?
Well, there are 7 total members of the board. I wouldn't expect, I'd be really happy if 3 decided to go.
I go.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
We just wanted to get it before you so that.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing it to us.
Does it need to be a resolution?
No, there's no
No.
formal approval. We just wanted you to be aware that we're gonna use these funds for the advisory.
Okay.
One quick question, Megan. I love this idea. Relationships are the most important thing. Could this translate over to doing training, not with HOT money, for P and Z?
if there are available resources that we can find, council approves it, because that would come out of a different operating budget. I don't see a problem, same with all the boards, if we can find the available training.
Okay, because I know we always have issues getting people on board, so if we can't support those boards more, maybe we can get more interest in them.
That's right. Good, thank you. All right, moving on to discussion item D, city manager.
So I'm trying to keep things on track. We have a lot of moving parts over the past several months and things kind of get below the priority line. We've been talking about the zoning ordinance and thank you, Mayor. It's discussed updates and recommendations made to Appendix B zoning to the Alpine Code of Ordinances and combining Chapter 78 signs to the Alpine Code of Ordinances into Appendix C zoning. This has been in discussions for about 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. I know that there's been multiple workshops. The recommendations have come through planning and zoning for both the zoning ordinance and to pass the recommended changes within the zoning ordinance. At the last meeting, a few meetings ago, beginning of April, we had the conversation regarding both ordinances. During the discussion, it was brought to everyone's attention, why don't we move the sign ordinance under the zoning ordinance, because some of that language deals with, depending on what zone you are, determines kind of your signage. I know Councilor Stone was really wanting to make sure we address billboards, which is in the ordinance as well. This is a draft. This is not, we're moving to the second reading, first reading, anything like that. You'll notice that the numbering needs to be corrected, where it still says Chapter 78. It doesn't flow like it should. There's still some grammatical. I've spoken with Jessica Isley and with Gio as well, and Jessica's still here. There's still more recommendations and things that we've been coming across. My biggest concern, and I hope with council's blessing, that we continue discussion and address various sections of it, but that we hold off on going to a first reading till the September time period. Only because my concern is all of the House and Senate bills coming down from legislation that do have an impact on our zoning ordinance, an impact on our ADUs, regulations on lot sizes, a lot of information that, and some of them are moving, full speed ahead, they may get approved. We would have to change as well. So I think as we monitor that, and I've been forwarding Jessica all of the TML summaries of these ordinances or proposed bills that could impact the city. I know we have a non-conforming one that just came up that I'm now monitoring because it can impact the city as well. And that we wait, but I don't want the discussion to just die down and then September be like, surprise, let's approve it. But also the second part of this that I want to bring up that Gio reminded is that we also consider making additional updates that the zoning, because we've talked about that as well. We want to make sure that we solidify that by ordinance, not resolution, because we've seen that that's been the issue in the past with ordinance, resolution, ordinance. How do we go which direction? So there's more information we can continue to update. So in your packet is, I'm going to say draft 1.1111. It is a lot bigger than you had originally, because we really did go through it. And this is all Jessica's work. I know she's been very patient with getting all the information, thought processes, things that we got from you at the last meeting, and getting it updated. So this takes the sign ordinance, puts it into the zoning ordinance. I think this week, Jessica has brought up a couple more thoughts of things we might want to look at, just earlier this meeting, looking at non-conforming and how do we want to address things like that. I know when I sent out the draft to council, Councilor Stevens had probably 12 or 13 questions, things that he had noticed, brought up. So I wanted to get it back on the plate, have Jessica come back up, kind of walk through the thought process, where we're at, get some suggestions from you guys. What are your thoughts? And then roughly once a month, just keep touching base with it as you guys are addressing concerns. You're addressing the concerns with residents and, their current zoning status, what's allowable, what's not allowable. Jessica's been really good about making sure to understand this is a draft. This isn't anything we can enforce. Under our current ordinances, that is what we have to follow. So until this is passed and we relax some of those regulations or we change them and make something allowable where it may not have been allowable, it's not moving forward. So I hope you have had time to look at it, have your thoughts, your questions. Jessica, if you want to.
Okay, come on up, Jessica. If you could give us the highlights of the important things that you think are here, what you want to add, what you want to change, please.
So good evening again, guys. The one thing that was the major change was adding the sign ordinance to everything and then taking the input from what you wanted to see different in the sign ordinance. There are a couple things that were changed in the zoning ordinance, but not much has been touched since the last time we discussed it. There was some questions that came through the city manager. I had wrote back some information and I had some suggestions kind of based off of some of those questions. But for the most part, most of the changes you're gonna see are gonna be in the sign ordinance where the suggestion to prohibit billboards, the height regulations, all of that stuff has been updated based off of the suggestions that were said in that last meeting. I don't know if there's any questions that you guys have for me.
Okay, Councilmember Martinez. You say that it will be changed about the highs. So if it's already an existing sign that is higher than the number that you are looking for, are they going to make that business to lower the sign?
So it can exist, we go back to the non-conforming or
Yeah.
grandfathered in, so if it's already exceeding the height of, I believe it's 35 feet. Or then it can exist as long as if it gets damaged beyond repair. Or they want to change it and update it to a new business, they'd have to bring it into compliance. So if it exists now and they're using it for that existing business, they can keep it that way, like McDonald's is one of them.
Yeah.
It's too high. So, and I told the new owner that their sign is not in conformance with the ordinance. So if somebody was to ever crash into it and it was damaged or something happened to it where they would have to replace it, it's gonna have to come down. And so I did notify him of that. There are a couple other, we went out and we actually measured some signs throughout town just to kind of get a gauge of how tall we were talking about. And there are a few that are too tall. But I think really prohibiting the billboards is the big thing, is like, we are not gonna have these big, massive billboards inside of city limits.
All right, Councilmember Escobedo.
What about the dark sky lighting, like with some of them that are so bright?
They do have a time frame to become in compliance with the dark skies. We didn't edit anything in this ordinance for dark skies. If I get any code complaints on them, I don't usually work in the evening, so typically would request for like a photo or something showing that it was not in compliance. There's been a couple that have been complained on recently, and so I have to notify the owners and let them know, like, you have so much time to become in compliance, but I don't get too many of them. You're more than welcome to put in complaints.
And Councilmember Escobar, I believe they have until June of 2026.
Right.
So they have a little more than a year.
Yeah.
So one of the things that was brought up, and I don't know if anybody else saw the questions that were given to me, was about the removal of group housing out of, was it your question?
It was mine, yeah.
Okay,
It's on my list.
so, yeah, so, do you mind if I speak on that information? Okay, so
Anyway.
just based off of the definition of what group housing was, I removed it. It's like institutional housing based off of the definition. And one of the things that I think that was the idea behind group housing, when you think about it, it would be what zoning would consider cottage housing, which is like more of a community style housing where they're not attached like a duplex. So there'd be like detached duplexes. And so it'd like be more like a community space with like a shared courtyard, or they'd have a shared, and that is something that we could implement and replace for group residential and put in cottage housing. I'd have put in the definitions. It would be very similar. You would have to make a decision on the square footage that you would require. I don't know if you'd want to do like 750 like we would for a duplex all in itself and have two separate duplexes on one lot, but I think that's kind of the question that you were trying to address.
Yep.
And so we would have to change we'd have to add the definition of it and then make the suggestion on like the square footage for something like that. Would it be as small as one of the casitas that we're putting in the ordinance? I don't know. But it is an idea, and I think it'd be a great idea to put more housing on one piece of property, like Mr. Nance is trying to promote. So I don't know if that's something you'd like to see, because I could also implement that as well. I think it's something that would be good.
Yeah, so that was exactly my thought, Jessica. You know, if you look at the number of lots and reducing the lot sizes down to potentially be 5,000 square feet, you got lots of flexibility in an R2 area, which we have a lot of property, putting 2 individual units without a common wall. So that was my motivation. I wasn't trying to drive to a smaller footprint for those units. You know, if we say minimum size 1,000 square feet, you still put 2,000 square foot units on an R2 lot that was 5,000 square feet. I was just trying to get rid of a common wall. That's all I was looking at. So I would appreciate if you'd work with.
Yeah, I think that that's something that would be really smart, especially when we're trying to get more density, more housing involved. And I've had architects ask that about the breezeway, if it works like this, if it works like that. And I think that the cottage style definition would meet kind of what you guys are talking about. It just isn't group residential. That's
Right.
not what we want to use for that definition. So
Is there, starting in a particular zone, would you want to do this just R2,
It's-
R3?
it starts in R2 and it's allowable in R3, it's allowable in R4. So it'd start in R2 and then build into any other zone other than R1.
Councilmember Stevens?
So thanks very much for covering that, because that's one of mine, Jessica. Section 19, so some of the notes I sent her, if you look at section 19, it says all ordinance or parts of the ordinance in conflict with the zoning ordinance are inconsistent with provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed to the extent necessary. Because this ordinance full force and effect, this ordinance shall become effective on May 10th, 1968. So I said, hey, we probably want to get the lawyers to look at that. That's on Peggy's list to run. It's a nib of one of those. So I'd like to get that one sorted out. Section 2 under R1. As I'm very supportive of going down to lot sizes being 5,000 square feet, except for R1s. In my view, the R1s, let's leave them 7,000 square feet. So that was my put in that area. The section 5 under the C1A, the concern I raised was this seems to open up recreational vehicle parks across the city. Not sure that I understand it or if I support it or not. Feedback with RV parks will only be allowable in the C1A yellow area. I just think one of the things we as council are look at is look at the zoning map, look at the C1As. I don't know if it's a lot of space or a little space.
A little space. You want to see the map?
If you got it, that'd be great. Just
I mean,
put
it's
that one to bed.
fine.
Because those who are C1s versus C1As, the only difference is C1As would allow mobile home parks and C1s would not do that.
So this is the yellow.
So that's it.
Yeah, there's just a little tiny bit here. And then, so what the suggestion was is make C1A and C2A, which they allow RVs in mobile home parks right now.
Okay,
They both allow them, is to make the yellow and purple one zone. So the yellow would become, the purple would become yellow is pretty much, and there's not very much purple either. So there's just 3 spots with purple.
so they're on the east end of town and the west of town, not in the middle of town. And my
Right,
view is, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay,
Thanks, Mayor.
you're welcome. All right, so Councilmember Nance?
Yeah, real quick. This guy, I guess, we had spoke at the, at that affordable housing thing and everything else, and having the developers there was fantastic. One thing I got out of that, meeting was developers prefer to build outside of town than inside of town. And it's because there's less regulations and hoops they gotta go through. So when they're developing in town, their costs are a little higher. So it's just, if there's demand everywhere, they're gonna go to the easiest place to build a house. Saying that, one thing we came in at the end was, I think would be interesting, and talk with Kirsten Moody, who will be on a little bit later as well. I would love to see a lobby of developers and builders here, look over some of these zoning changes. And because I've never built a house and I never will in my life, never had the skill set for that, to get the smart people in the room to look over this with you guys, and then y'all work together, because I mean, Keith Nixon said there's a couple things that, and Rick Portillo was there as well, on, there's a couple things y'all could change real quick and easy to lax off the IVC that would lower costs for those developers. After that meeting, I was gonna say, I talked to one of our tax attorneys as well, and he said, you see a lot of cities do this, where they start, if zoning codes kind of splattered around and stuff like that, as far as regulations and stuff. You'll see people on your end who want the consistency, because you're the enforcer of a lot of this, to come back to the IBC and say, here's a set standard that we're gonna abide. Here's a standard we're gonna abide by now. A lot of cities start there, but then after that, they start amending a lot. And I think that amendment process should start with a lobby of local developers and builders with you guys, because y'all's goal is to keep it safe and provide everything structure there. But we got to get the developers building here for density and everything else. So saying that, I was going to come back in when you said September. I love the idea if we can get some developers and stuff working together to kind of look at some of this and make any, what was it? Changes or, ideas for that. Because are we hearing that it's going to be first reading in September?
Ideally, it would be first reading in September. I'm hoping that they don't have several call sessions after legislation closes like they did this last go round. Typically, the ones that are moving right now involving zoning, ETJ, the ADUs, they're moving fast enough. We'll probably know before September. But September is a safe month because that's typically when everything will go into effect. Otherwise, January.
Okay, which provides us a lot of time to get some feedback from local developers.
So just to clarify, the zoning ordinance has nothing to do with the building code. The zoning ordinance is basically districts that allow certain types of housing to be put there based off of regulation. So the R1 is the one that is 1,000 square foot minimum. And so for a builder, it really doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference if you're building in the county because there are no regulations. That's why you can do anything you want in the county. You could stack 10 Connex containers together and call it a house. We can't do that in the city because we have adopted codes that are building codes, and that's what makes it safe for people to live in them. And we have people that inspect them and things like that. So it's completely separate from the zoning ordinance that we're looking at today. I do think that having regular conversations with builders is a great idea and tradesmen. But at the same time, it doesn't affect what we're talking about today.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just see too, from the developers, someone's probably gonna go talk to a developer before they talk to you guys on if they want to move to town or anything else like that. So they're probably hearing, like, I'm looking for a smaller house, I'm looking for a larger house or anything else like that. And then when they kind of see what's available, the restrictions on that, then they're gonna come clarify with, the city, I believe. But so I'm wondering, they're gonna know somewhat of the aggregate demand out there for developing and moving here. You're right, you're the detailed person.
Well, I mean, and also if you look at the difference in the county, you don't have to have a licensed plumber, electrician, or anything like that. You can build everything yourself. There's nobody regulating that for you. So it's very different. Of course, it's going to be cheaper, but is it going to be safer?
Yeah, and I think when I was talking to that one gentleman, because he said Lubbock did the exact same thing. They started with the IBC and then they moved away from that. And the IBC is basically saying, we want to be absolutely safe all the time in every location. Which when you swing that far, then you're gonna, in my view, overregulate, as opposed to what the other side of that is, the county underregulate. There's that general area in the middle where we want safety, but we also don't want to require safety all the time, everywhere, and everything else like that. There has to be some compromise, I guess.
Good. All right,
And-
anything else?
So-
Bless you. All right, thank
That it?
you. All right, city manager, you have item B.
Thank you, Mayor. Item E is discuss the proposal from Strategic Government Resources, SGR, regarding the hire of an interim utilities director. So I kind of wanted to explain why it's going the direction it's going. This isn't a normal employee hiring process. This is actually a contract with a third party to hire someone, which is why it's going before council. I had a couple people ask, well, why don't you just hire someone? And, why are you going through council? It does slow down the process. We're going on, month 2 of working this through. SGR is the only one who's reached out. SGR is the only one who's provided any information, but this would be a formal contract. I did provide the contract as soon as I had received it to city council for your review and consideration. There still would be the interview process in regards to sitting down with, the 3, it has changed since then, because, they're in a professional service where they're, being moved around to cities that need them. Based on what SGR came back with, so they'll provide an interim public works director perform the essential duties for the city. They will help with our selection process. The compensation is $75 to $80 an hour. There are additional ones if we ask for, a comprehensive media search, a background investigation. We would provide reimbursement for mileage and temporary housing because we do not own any houses to allow them to stay. Of course, it would be a bi-weekly payment. Of course, they have the regulations. They do offer full service placement, which they're indicated in here that if we went that direction, they would charge $10,000 for that placement fee. What the city is responsible for, and of course, any type of termination clause. So within the packet that was available is the proposal. Like I said, the next step would be going to interview. I do want to talk about it with council because we would be signing a formal contract. So this wouldn't, like I said, this isn't a typical employment agreement. We're hiring you as a director. Get your feedback, your thoughts. Wanting moving forward with it. So we still are advertising. We once again reached back out to all of the different associations. I'm doing a free trial on Indeed to try and get the word out there. We're not the only city who's struggling with this position. This has been on discussion with council probably since I've been with the city. We've relaxed our requirements for this position without meeting the certifications. We're just asking for project management. All across the state of Texas, departments, water sources, multi-use districts, everyone's suffering for these type of certified people. I'd like to move forward with interviewing so that I can present to council. It would not be on the May 20th agenda. It would have to be the first agenda in June. In order to have time to interview and see what candidates are available. And this, of course, would be coming out of the utility fund for the expenses and then coordinating with locals in regards to housing, making sure that we could accommodate that if necessary. I don't foresee using a hotel. I foresee using probably, a rental unit, a short-term rental, something that we could have a long-term month-to-month type of agreement in place so that we can bring someone in. We're not giving up on finding a full-time person. But this would kind of relieve some of the pressure on getting this position.
Okay, so what are we currently offering? Refresh my memory for,
Negotiable up to 110,000 a year.
that's what we're advertising.
So we don't advertise the amount, we advertise it as negotiable so that we have that room. The position starts at about 78,000.
Okay. If I did my math correct, over 10 months, this would be $128,000 that we're paying this person just in salary.
Plus all the additional expenses.
Okay, so would it be wise maybe to raise the amount of salary that we're offering for people to come here permanently?
So you just approved a comprehensive plan that provided the salary ranges for all the positions, including your current staff.
And that's unchangeable?
It's not that it's unchangeable, but I would definitely be prepared to have a discussion.
Okay. All right, so that's just something for council to consider. 10 months, 128,000 for a temporary employee. Okay, Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah, that was one of my questions about the money. It was already, excuse me, it was already in the budget, all these expenses?
No.
No. So where are these money? You just said they would come from the utilities?
Yeah, so we have part of the salary already budgeted to fulfill that position, and the rest would be a budget amendment to cover the additional costs.
How much of the cities pay? They pay more? I mean, could you say they move really fast? So maybe they'd offer more pay and they went to another city, so.
So it really does fluctuate across the state of Texas.
Okay.
We did the comprehensive study to make sure that we were within that.
So what are we paying for for what is right now is just a compensation to do 2 jobs? It's nothing compared with the real pay?
I wouldn't know what the real pay would be. So there's a whole hiring process that could be tied to this, and maybe they would become permanent at the salary that they're currently being made. They're serving as interim professionals. So they come in and help cities and fill in different positions and then kind of rotate around the state. unless one of them just falls in love with an area and moves there. So it does fluctuate. Some areas it may be more expensive just because of the market value in that area.
Of these three peoples that we come for interview, they already know all this amount that we are working, or they
So I
want more?
believe they are hired by SGR, because SGR is the one who is coordinating all of it. So they would have a contract that would indicate something different for them and what, their ranges are.
What it can be really attractive that they say, yes, I wanted to come to Alpine? More money or?
It could be the money, it could be the benefits, it could be they just want a quieter, slower paced environment. They look forward to a challenge. And we've had good interviews, twice. One, he wanted to make at a much higher level. And the other one, as you recall, we did hire, but unfortunately wasn't able to take the position.
And what I would say, I really like Alpine, but this 120 or whatever you offer me is not enough. And you raise a little bit, we would be able to.
So that would be a conversation back to city council, because I've been trying really hard to stay within the comprehensive plan. Because we went that direction to make it, consistent across the board.
Yeah, well, hopefully one will take this, what we're offering, but just in case none of them will take it, maybe offer a little bit more. I don't know.
And maybe the way the hourly rate structure is they understand it's a temporary position, that it's not, we're gonna be there for 10 years.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nance.
I was gonna say, this shows you the deal that we had with Johnny. When you come back in and you look at the cost of this, and we were getting Johnny for an extra 10 grand a year or something. So this just shows you how, he was doing us a favor on that, but, so this is the only response SGR? And, so just like, no, there's just no fish in the sea, huh? We got one girl to take the problem. Then what else do we have here? Couple things. I was hoping Wendell Medford would be here, because one question I have, I wonder if they have data on what % of people they place actually stay within the cities. So if that's the name of the game, and they're putting people to apply in those cities, I would retain that kind of data to see what kind of success, percentage you have. And are you putting people in cities are you solving the city's problem perpetually? Or are you just filling a gap until the city can actually find someone? I don't know if they would have that data or not.
I can definitely follow up and ask him. I know that SGR is a headhunter firm.
Okay. And in my opinion, a headhunter firm is looking for the right candidate in the right place.
Yes, and the last time we had reached out to them regarding assistance with hiring at the director level, the response back to me was that the city of Alpine was too messy.
Oh, okay.
Too messy.
Was too what?
Messy.
Oh.
But it's been a few years, so I reached back out to them. So US Waters initially did respond, but then no follow-up. And I just reached back out a couple of times.
Another question on this. So this is to fill in a position for a utility manager. When we look at all the cities that they list as references, it's everything from a small city to a large city. I'm sure every city doesn't have the same responsibilities of that utility manager. So I guess we would express what our utility manager does, and then they're gonna try to find somebody there.
Correct. And so I did provide them an initial list of our ongoing projects and concerns.
Okay, so they say, these are your issues, I'll try to find the right person for you. Another one here. How is overtime done? Because how much overtime was Johnny working? Because if this guy's gonna do what Johnny does, and he's getting paid time and a half for overtime, then that's a cost we need to be cognizant of.
You can't compare to Johnny because Johnny works 24/7.
Okay.
So
this
he
per-
monitors the SCADA system, which can go off at any given point. And then of course, most of the on-calls will go through him. So you can't compare. We're very lucky to have a salaried employee at that. His overtime would have to be monitored.
Huh?
So it would still be utilizing our current employee base to fill in those additional hours.
So do you expect this to be a 40-hour-a-week job or more?
I expect it to probably start off about.
Okay, so that's a cost that we would be quoting on there. And then the last question I was gonna say is, just that how important is it where we're at as a city without a public utility manager right now? How important is it in your perspective to get this? Like, because it's not a meal I want to sit down and eat every day, but is it important that we just eat all of these carrots to get this done?
The city has had so much turnover in that department that it's really struggling. Without having someone there to monitor and motivate and keep them moving, we get behind. In the past month, I will tell you that there has been a huge turnaround in that department because you have someone who's come in and basically said, we need to do this. This is where we're at. I'm not tolerating it. We need to move forward. I can't continue to do that.
Gotcha.
So I'm there every morning. I'm filling in, making sure, checking work orders, checking timesheets, checking the routes, working with the staff. I've terminated 3 employees in that department already. I'm not tolerating the poor job performance. I document, I educate, and we move on. But it does take someone who has the time, and we're still behind. I sent out the email regarding the estimates. And it kills us because one route created 72 adjustments to accounts. And it's not that they're not trying, but every day the amount of work orders that come in and the amount of time it takes to get things done, it's overwhelming for them. I can see the struggle. The gas department is very lucky that they have a dedicated director, and that they're in a preventative stage. So hiring someone really, really is important. We talk about workloads, we talk about burnout, we talk about trying to keep the team going. They have definitely become more of a team because they've had some structure put in place, which has been the benefit. But to have someone come in and take the reins and say, okay, this is the structure, we're going to move forward with it, staying on top of it, would be definitely a benefit to the city.
And one last question. You just said it's important. It's important. We can, the contract can be broken on 2-week notice, correct? 14 days, correct? What are our sunk costs to bring someone on and remove somebody? So we're talking 2-week notice at, what is that? I mean, what do you think our total cost would be to basically bring somebody out onto the dance floor? And then if we don't get along, then, you know, what's the cost to the city to try this out?
Number wise, I wouldn't be able to provide that. I mean, at most, if they're here 30 days, you've got the salary, the cost of the lodging, and the meals.
Interview process. I might check with Wendell on that.
You said meals as well.
My understanding is that we would have to cover some.
That was everything.
So you want to know the hiring?
I would know, what are our sunk costs in order to bring somebody on and retain them for the short, like, you know, a month? Because to me, when we're spending a lot of money to find the right person, I want to be very aggressive about finding the right person. I don't want us to be a blank text for a year while they find the right person.
Councilmember Escobedo.
He asked a bunch of questions I was curious about. I'm also wondering if when we go after hiring an interim director, will that person be a hands-on or just be giving, you know, directions and standing back? And will that person, if and when we do hire a person, will that person also get the licenses that are needed?
So our current council has approved the removal of those licenses. So they're not required to be for the job. We changed it for project management to be able to manage the project start to finish as well as the employees. So I know that the last individual we hired had the licenses in the past, but didn't have them current. So was he willing to get them? Yes. Now, if this is an interim position, I would not request them to get the licensing because I don't think the city would want to pay for something like that if we knew they weren't going to stay.
And if we were to get a permanent person, would they be reinstated?
If they didn't have the licensing, that's always been a conversation that we would recommend that they at least, you know, start the process. I said, but the current, we remove those because that was another struggle is finding people with the specific certifications.
Another question is we had 3 candidates and it was dwindled down to 1.
Well, no, one stuck out more than the others
Right.
because of his resume. But reaching back out to Wendell, it may be that, okay, well, these are the new ones who are available, or this is who's currently. Cause I said, they're headhunters basically. So they're working to place interims, permanent, you can take it, we could do a permanent direction with them as well to help us find a permanent candidate. Those would have definite upfront costs. And then they would find us someone to stay here permanently. But as far as, sorry, I lost my train.
Yeah. So that might be something also for us to,
I mean, we
to
could take
consider,
a
because
permanent direction if we wanted.
it looks like Wendell, I don't know if he's looking for a full-time job.
So
He's,
Wendell is the middleman. Wendell works
Yeah.
for SGR. He doesn't actually he just helps us find people.
okay,
So he's the one that sent the information, hey, these are your possibilities. The individuals that he submitted, most of them are retirees.
right.
Or they've signed into the SGR program. Because I mean, it is something that you think about, at certain stages in your career where I want to go see what it's like in other areas, or, maybe I want the ability to travel. And so they'll put a
Or I'm
permanent
retired
job
and I just
to-
want some extra
Yeah.
money here or there and do these temporary jobs. Yeah.
But they do have a permanent feature as well, where they will actually do the start to finish processing to hire a full-time position.
All right, Councilmember Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. One, in my view, we gotta get on with getting someone in the short term because you're getting killed in the process. I agree. I'm sitting there looking at the SGR job board. They're taking us to the cleaners in my view. I've been in the editing business a lot of years. Normally you're gonna get, depending upon the level, somewhere in the 20 to 25% fee. That's what you're gonna collect. My sense is they're going after the high end at 40% on what they're offering. Just looking at the jobs that they have posted on the job board, but they probably know they're kind of in a sole source situation.
Well, there's others that do the same thing. So Baker Tilly, which has kind of had the worst reputation lately, does this as well. There's another group, Clear something, they do the same kind of deal for governments.
Yeah.
So they're trying to find professionals for government. So there's other, I guess, headhunters that
Yeah.
provide the same service.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at the fee they're charging.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all I'm looking is the fee. Utility operations manager, Panama City, Florida, 85K to 100K. They're talking to, so when you take the annual number they're talking about, that's $160,000. So this is what they're going out to average. Gee, we need a utilities operations manager for the city of Alpine. This is what we're willing to pay you.
And then they take.
And what they want to charge us is like 30 to 40% more. So I don't know if there's any negotiating range there, which takes us then back to the discussion. I know we did our market study. This one may be one we have to make an exception to get someone who's decent in here to get going. But my view is I press on with SGR. It's gonna take a load off you. I do think we want to go get a month-to-month rental. I would not pay per diem. The per diem alone's $2,000 a month. It's $1,000 a year just to pay someone's meals. And if they're gonna be here, they're gonna eat anyway, wherever they're living. Why should we pay for their meals? So my sense is cost wise, if we went to the whole year, we'd be in the neighborhood of about $190,000 to $210,000. We just have to be ready to stomach that, divide it out. But I think we have to change the salary opportunity to get someone to come do the job. We ought to go do that.
Now, the other option is do we want to consider just moving forward with a permanent placement and utilize it instead of a temporary?
I don't understand the question.
So I reached out to these companies for temporary professional services, interim professional
Okay.
services. They can provide permanent as well, where they will do the hiring, start to finish, present it to council, and then say, these are your possible candidates, we can interview, and then we can select a full-time person.
Oh, my reaction, I did down that path.
Yeah.
You're,
We can at least get
we're
calls.
responsible to find someone, hire the headhunter to go find the candidates so we get the opportunity to interview. Let them do all the hard work. That's where I go.
So then that is a different agreement because they do charge fees for that.
Yeah.
But I will also reach out to the couple other that I'm aware.
Yeah, my sense is, but the fee structure, they're right, assuming someone is here for a full year, you're gonna pay, my sense is 40% on whatever the salary is. So you pay it one way or the other. And you're probably gonna be better off getting a full-time employee, let them do all the legwork.
Yeah.
If it might work.
All right, good. Anything else? Okay, all right, let's move on to action items. The first action item is city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The first action item is to approve the second and final reading of ordinance 2025-05-01. An ordinance amending chapter 74 Parks and Recreation, Article 2 Municipal Swimming Pool to the Alpine Code of Ordinances, amending rules and regulations for the city pool.
I need a motion.
I move we approve the ordinance, second reading of ordinance 2025-05-01 as presented.
I need a second.
Second.
All right, discussion, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the second and final reading. It did pass the first reading. The key updates include the administrative oversight, the safety and conduct enhancements, which was specifically the age requirements. I know that there have been multiple discussions regarding this, but we are on track to change it to 13. Changing the prohibitions of ban vaping and tobacco use, not just smoking. So this would include dip in the vaping side of it as well. Specifically prohibiting glass drink containers while food is allowed. Barbecue pits and electric grills are still prohibited. And then just providing a clear enforcement to promote the usage of the pools.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Aye.
Aye.
City Secretary Council voted unanimously. Councilor Stone is absent due to work reasons for ordinance 2025-05-01, so it was approved. Okay, moving on to action item B, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Approve the second and final reading of ordinance 2025-05-02. An ordinance authorizing the vacation, abandonment, and sale of 0.046 acres out of South Fifth Street right-of-way platted as part of Ferguson's second addition to the city of Alpine, envelope 96, plat records of Brewster County, Texas. Authorizing the city manager to execute a deed without warranty to the applicant, Horticultural Consulting LLC, directing that the funds from the sale of the city's interest be deposited into the general fund for the purpose of street improvements, providing for terms and conditions of such thereof, providing for a severability clause, providing for an effective date.
I need a motion.
Mayor, I move we approve the second final reading of ordinance 2025-05-02 as presented.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion, city manager.
Thank you. So this is the second and final reading. This is the property that they originally wanted a larger section. After discussing with Johnny and myself, and we visited with Miss Kara Coates and her husband, went out there, walked the property line, determined the location, and came up with a reasonable compromise on the property. They did follow the procedures to submit for the purchase of the property and have provided all of the supporting documentation.
Okay, so this is the second final reading. Any other discussion?
I just have one question. Do they have a road already to get there, or they will build a new road, or?
There's not, so it's a dead end.
Today, it's in the end.
I know.
So when
I
you
am.
go up the church, it dead ends, so they own both properties.
So they
on
have to
either
walk
side.
to get there.
So they're just trying to get a little part so that they basically can have that.
So they won't build the road in the future.
There's no way to build.
Okay, I know. I know.
Any other discussion? No. Let's vote.
Aye.
Aye.
City Secretary Council voted unanimously to approve ordinance 2025-05-02. Moving on to action item C, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Approved resolution 2025-05-01. A resolution approving a contract for the purpose of financing an asphalt zipper.
I need a motion.
Mayor, I propose we approve resolution 2025-05-01, approving the contract for the purpose of financing the asphalt zipper with an 5 annual payments of $78,619.37.
I second.
Okay, discussion, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So as presented to council in the demonstration, I reached out to Government Capital in regards to their financing program. They provided an option of 3 and 5 year. Council did recently approve a 3-year lease for the loader. My recommendation was the 5 years so that you're not hitting the budget hard for the next 3 years. It kind of spaces it out a little bit. Please be aware that if this is approved by council, I will take it back to government capital and they're gonna try to see if they can combine the two and finance for a lower interest rate. So the number may be more, in our best.
Councilmember Escobedo,
I agree, we need it.
Councilmember Martinez,
We're ready to go.
okay, Councilmember Nance,
So what does that process look like? If we agree to this, then they come back and say they want to tie both of those projects into a lower interest rate. Does that come back to us? And we,
For record keeping and audit purposes, yes, I would propose, hopefully at the next agenda, the combining of the two with the lower rates. If she's not able to, then we would just move forward with the purchase.
okay, so we've already approved the lower.
Yes,
Okay, and then we would approve this tonight. They'll come back in.
if they're able to, yes.
You do not need a third approval to tie both in.
I will request a third just for transparency and audit purposes.
Okay, gotcha. One thing on this too, I was gonna say, if you can explain the difference when you run the math on this, it's an $800 difference. If we finance with Zipper compared to financing with this company. So explain again why we're going with this company.
So government capital will not put a lien on the equipment.
Okay. No lien on equipment from government capital and couple questions. Why does this go through council? And then, so with large capital asset purchases in the past, is there a threshold where you go to council approval?
So our current procurement processes require that anything over 50,000 has to go out for a RFP, request for proposal, unless it actually has a purchasing co-op. So both pieces of equipment do have purchasing co-ops that we don't have to go for the request for proposal and then present that to council for approval. But in this case, we are going through a financing plan, which does require city council approval.
Anything financing goes through a city council.
Yes.
Okay.
Any large, I shouldn't say everything, any large piece of equipment, like our Xerox machine, those are on a financing program, but we don't take those.
Gotcha, and that's over 50,000.
No. I don't.
The one more here too. Just explaining, and I did talk to Eddie beforehand on this because I always like to hear what experts, so I always ask Jessica about zoning because I don't know anything about zoning. But asking the city employees, and he said, yes, he's very much in favor of this. So I think that's good to know. And then we're paying basically, from the citizens' perspective, we're paying $60,000 to finance this, but we're buying 5 years. So I guess the question from council's perspective, is it worth us to spend $60,000 in order to purchase that timetable so we can start doing this ASAP? I'm assuming you guys would love us to start. So that's all my question.
okay, Councilmember Stevens,
I would like to amend the motion. And I would like to amend it to give the city manager authority to move forward without city council approval, so long as she's able to get to be at the financing costs at the same or a reduction. And that at a future city council meeting, she provide information to council rather than ask for approval.
okay, I need a second.
I second.
Any discussion on that amendment?
I guess the only discussion I have is if we do that, then, I mean, is the lender motivated? I mean, if I was the lender, I'd say that's the best price I can get, but they could do that anyway.
If they can do it anyway, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other discussion on the amendment or the original motion?
And just for clarification, once again, if the rate comes in at what it is now or lower,
She's got to come back. That's the.
I just approve it.
All right, let's vote on the amendment. Aye.
Aye.
City Secretary, the amendment passed unanimously to authorize the city manager to move without council authority, but with an update on the financing for the zipper. Now, as the original motion as amended, vote.
Aye.
Aye.
City Secretary, the original motion has been approved as amended unanimously. All right, action item D has already been removed. Moving on to action item E, city manager.
Mayor, the last action item is to approve a lease agreement between Alpine Community Projects and the city of Alpine for the use of the building at 205 East Sol Ross Avenue.
I need a motion.
Mayor, I propose we approve the lease agreement between Alpine Community Projects and the city of Alpine for the use of the building at 205 East Sol Ross Avenue, also known as the Old Sunshine House.
Okay, I need a second.
I second.
Okay, discussion, city manager.
So after the 13 ways to kill your city, Kirsten Moody had reached out. There had been some discussion. She had spoken to Counselor Stevens in regarding the property and some of the thought process and how we could utilize it, the benefits of opening it up to nonprofits. She provided her bullet points of things that she would like to see. I reached out to our legal team, kind of, this is what they're looking at. Went back and forth. Kirsten is online as well. We're looking at a 12-month lease beginning June 1st with the optional renewal upon mutual agreement. The rental amount would be for $1 for the entire lease term. The premises would be utilized for nonprofit and volunteer-driven community engagement activities, subject to city manager approval. The tenant does have responsibilities with general cleaning, beautification, minor repairs, and the payment of utilities. We would make sure to continue the structural repairs, pest control, HVAC maintenance, parking lot upkeep, and removal of the city property prior to turnover. And we actually already have started that process. The records have been removed from that building, and any items left from the prior departments that were there has been removed as well. And our maintenance street department is also have it scheduled for a nice good deep cleaning. There is one section of the building that Kirsten is aware of that would not be open for use, and that's the section that has the kitchen area in it, just for safety issues. It was not remodeled in the initial remodel. Of course, insurance requirements, we obviously, it's our building, we will maintain our insurance on the facility. The termination provisions are also included. And then, of course, we would just sign. We would have a walkthrough beforehand to make sure if there's any little things we need to update. And then we would hand over the keys to the Alpine Community Projects. A copy of the lease was provided. This was prepared by Cynthia Trevino, our legal counsel. We made a few changes in some of the terminology. Otherwise, I believe it's a good one.
Yeah, in my view, this is a no-brainer. I mean, the building's sitting empty. We have somebody that can use it and it will help the nonprofits. They're going to provide general cleaning, beautification, minor repairs. They're going to pay the utilities, which is going to save us money and start to get some use out of the building and get it going. So is there any other discussion?
Megan, on the 13 ways to kill your city, have we completed any of those? Actually, I did have a couple questions. The lease, when we lease with other properties, is there a set timetable where there's a curve where we should prorate this? Do they typically start at the beginning of our fiscal year or no?
No, so we have several lease agreements currently in place. They can start at any time and we do prorate them. We did that for the neighborhood center. And speaking with Kirsten, or I should say emailing, not really speaking. I indicated June 1st just to allow for city staff time to go in and make the necessary removal of property, minor repairs, cleaning and all that. So that we didn't rush into an agreement and then they have to wait. So June 1st was kind of a clean date.
Okay. So no reason to prorate. Second question, is there any strategy to dovetail this into the tax credits or anything else after the historic commission? Because this is going to be within that area. We really haven't thought that through.
We really haven't thought that as far as, does the city want to continue maintaining the asset? Do we want to sell the asset? Do we want to continue leasing it? There's different aspects, revenues, sources, the direction we could go. I know in the past, we've talked about all the different facilities and do we want to keep them all? Do we not want to keep them all? I do know that this building does need additional repairs made to it. We did consider at one point using hot funds because it is a historical building to help with that as well. There's a lot we could do.
Those are all the questions I had.
Councilmember Escobedo, you have anything?
Oh, no.
Councilmember Stevens?
Has Rocky Raccoon been evicted?
So we do have traps.
Okay, so we're still working.
I don't believe they've caught him or her or them.
Yep.
But we've definitely, we're working on
Okay,
it.
good.
We've narrowed down the possible places. They
Super, good, okay, thanks.
Okay, let's vote.
Oh, no, that's good. I was just going to see if we could give Kirsten a short amount of time just to talk about her strategy or idea for this property. If she was interested.
Sure. Hi, y'all. Thank you so
Hi.
much for considering this and shepherding it through. I don't want to take up a bunch of time. I know y'all have been there already quite a while, but I just want to sort of tell everybody there now that what we're really just hoping to do with it is, number one, have sort of a headquarters so that we can more effectively do work for the community and open it up to hopefully other nonprofits that might want to make use of what we can put together there, and then do the beautification on the front. So I appreciate y'all being willing to sort of go into this with us.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, City Secretary Council voted unanimously to approve the lease agreement between Alpine Community Projects and the City of Alpine for the use of building at 205 East Sol Ross Avenue. All right, good job, Chris Kirsten. Thank you so much. All right, so moving on to executive reports. Each executive report, 6 minutes. In the interest of time, I have no report this evening. City Manager,
Thank you,
6
Mayor.
minutes on the clock.
Short as possible. And I want to thank you for bringing up the drought. We've been looking at our water system. I know that, last month we had 12 reported water leaks that did require to be fixed, as well as 12 sewer backups. We continue to coordinate with the engineering. It really is a matter of time and coordination to address what we think may help us with some of our problems, especially as we come up into the summer months. We have not had rain. We did have snow in April, but we really do need rain. We've coordinated with them to determine the pump flow, the direction for trying to connect the two sides. It's really getting the team to dig up a large portion of that area, including the street, and then leaving it uncovered, so that the engineer can decipher how it was put into the ground, and is the water going the right direction. And the second item that we've talked about is the Pierce tank. Andy with Jacob and Martin was gracious enough to reach out to Clay Valve to get their perspective. They're the ones who installed our current clay valves in the system, which is what regulates our water. They're open and closed to determine how the water moves through the system, especially on that side. Currently, we bypass Pierce tank. In other words, it won't fill. So the water's just running through back into our distribution system. They have provided kind of a thought process that we need to start working on, which does require currently the only one team member, which would be Johnny, to go in and determine each of the locations and pressures of those valves. Once again, it's just the time in which to do things. We do continue to address the water leaks and sewer backups, but on the water leaks, we submitted our water use survey in March with a 2.1 billion water loss, which is actually impossible because we can't produce that much water from all of our wells at one time in a given month, really, or a year. And after revisiting the data and updating it, it was determined that we only had 488 million. Yes, that sounds like a lot, but that is consistent with where we're at. One of my things that I'm moving forward with is we talk about our system and you have all this water loss, you have all these water leaks, you're losing all this water, but that's not 100% true. So in May, we had a fire. None of that water usage was really recorded, which, it's understandable. I've already reached out to the fire department and the emergency services board with implementing a monthly estimated, which they say shouldn't be an issue. Because they pretty much know what goes in their tankers, they know what goes to their fire trucks, so it's easy for them. But when those the fire hydrants are opened, it's making sure we estimate, what's the PSI, how many hours did we have it open, how long did we use it, kind of thing. So they're willing to help us on that because right now we just report unknown fire use. So it's not just the use of fires, it's for the training. I know one of the things we talked about last year and we've already addressed it for this year is, we have a lot of good public events like Splash Day for the elementary kids. But putting in a process where, let's tie you to a fire hydrant and let's add a meter to it so we know how much water is being used. I've also reached out to our team. We have a system in place where we calculate our water loss for certain leaks. Obviously, we won't know if it's a leak until it comes above ground. So we don't know how much is being lost below ground. So we're trying to kind of get a better situation on that as well. We are prioritizing the water leaks only because they're also trying to read meters. So that does put them behind when they're pulled away for a water leak that could take anywhere from a couple hours to 2 days. And it's a team thing. We're not, one person does everything and everyone else doesn't. Like I said, we've restructured. And so I'm really looking forward to providing better and more accurate data when we do this report, as well as having that conversation. I know that, James was more than like, yeah, we can do this, not a possibility. Rusty was on board with it. But then looking at some of the other events that we have in the water usage, everything that's metered, we can typically account for. We're already looking at our meter system, not just the smart meters, but how do we start updating them? Because older meters don't record all of the water usage. It will be an impact on the community because where you're paying maybe a couple bucks a month, you're going to be paying double because newer meters will catch everything. But we're looking at that as well. So we're really excited. Gas department is doing great. They're keeping up with their DEMP and their bigger projects. The police department, I know Daryl's been pushing his training left and right, which has been wonderful. All the departments are really focused on the training, whether it's hands-on or it's sending them to a class. So we're excited about that. We even have some admin training here tomorrow at lunch. Just, some basic usage of the phone system because we all have different phone models. It's kind of fun. How do you transfer a call? So little things like that. So overall, we've seen some really good improvements with the city, the departments. We're excited about this week. The council, I think Darren, who's currently here, I know that this is not his quite last meeting, but last meeting. You guys have made a lot of improvements, a lot of ordinances. You're going to start seeing them all come back up. So as we review and all that. But I think over the past few months, we've definitely made some strides.
Great, thank you. All right, council member comments. 1 minute, Councilmember Stevens.
Nothing else to talk about tonight. Glad everyone was here tonight. And thanks for all of you sticking around.
Yes. Councilmember Escobedo.
Just thank y'all for staying and for being here.
Okay. Councilmember Nance.
Usually don't say anything, but congratulations to the new council members. It's going to be an awesome, fulfilling experience, especially if you love learning. I want to thank again both councils that I worked under. Great to meet a diversity of people. And then the city workers, can't say it enough. Every time I talk to a city worker, I learn something that I didn't know. You learn how ignorant you are of everything that actually makes the city go. And thank you to the city leadership, Gio and Megan. You guys taught me how important it is to have organizational knowledge, that stays here in the consistency of all that. So that was everything I had.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
Well, thank you, Darren, for leaving us. I will wish you well in the future. And again, we congratulate the new 2 members. So we can wait for having you here and take decisions and helping us. We need a lot of help. And thank you, you guys, for being so patient and spending this time more often.
Yes, yes. All right, great. So that leads us to executive session number 14. So, council start over. Council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during the meeting for any posted agenda item or to receive advice from an attorney as permitted by law. Tonight, the city council will recess into executive section pursuant to section 551.071 to discuss consultation with our attorney for 2 letters of demand. May I have a motion to convene into executive session?
Prior to making that motion.
9 o'clock, I know.
Can I ask whether or not we believe we need to extend beyond that? Okay,
Okay, we
so
will.
then I would propose, first motion is we extend beyond 9 o'clock for city council meeting.
Okay, I was gonna do that once we got in there, but that's okay.
We can't do it in executive session. Yeah.
Okay, all right, may I have a second? All right, discussion?
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so city secretary, we have agreed to extend into meeting until 9 o'clock or past if needed.
And now propose the city council go into executive session.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion? Vote?
Aye.
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 City secretary, we are moving into executive session at this time. And that is 8:36 p.m.
No, tell me this break.
I thought you were going to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, quick break, council, 5 minutes, stretch your legs. No subway, I didn't know it was gonna be this late tonight. I thought it would be over by 7:30. And that's what Gio thought too.
Are you keeping your name?
Okay. May I have a motion to reconvene into open session?
I move we move back into the open session.
I second.
Discussion? Let's vote.
Aye.
Aye.
City Secretary Council is reconvening into open session at 9:22 PM. May I have a motion to take no action?
For Councilor Nance is this last official.
I'll
Uh,
make the motion that we take no action on either item.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's vote.
Aye.
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 City Secretary Council is taking no action on either item that was in executive session. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you, Darren.
Well, you're here on the 13th, right? You're gonna be here next week.